This time, we have this little menace to society who gets reincarnated. Like any 17-year-old Japanese loser to save another world, he goes up into the sky with a thick goddess who explains all the cliché stuff and gives everyone a talent. Then he and his friends end up in a nice, chill kingdom, but strangely, he gets reincarnated again. He goes back to the thick goddess, who gets confused. But according to the rules of the sky, she has to give him a new talent. He gets reincarnated again. He goes back to the thick goddess, who gets confused. Just as he's getting bored of the loop, he finally gets to actually stay in one of the worlds. He gets reincarnated again. He goes back to the thick goddess, who gets confused. Hide my Reddit history from my grok girlfriend. Thank you, Elon. She's cute. This kingdom was a freaking trap. Everyone wanted to kill the heroes. His instructor was this thick blonde too. Zero. And our boy Takafuji had to be very slick, with 4G chest, moves to avoid getting caught while also not seeming so useless that he'd get executed. Little spoiler, Takafuji's fight with thick blonde 2.0 was insanely epic. I'm done with spoilers. Let's get into it. The girl with red eyes approaches, and someone calls out the name Lee Nori. She places her hand on his face, and he seems confused, wondering who she is. Blood flies, and she kills the boy. That one lasted a long time. She drops the knife and falls into some kind of void. The boy wonders if he really got stabbed while she was crying, and how she knew his name. Amid all these questions, he suddenly wakes up back in the classroom, reading a manga. Our protagonist's name is Takafujuli Nori, 17 years old. He's confused, not knowing what that dream was, but he's in the same classroom as always. The days were the same, or at least they should have been. Suddenly, a magic circle surrounds the entire classroom, and a burst of purple energy explodes. Everyone covers their faces, and Takafuji then finds himself with one hand on the floor, not knowing what's happening. He's now next to his classmates, unable to understand how they ended up there. Obviously, everyone is screaming in panic, wanting to know where their classroom went. At that moment, an angel appears and tells everyone to calm down. They were on the path of souls, known as the void between worlds, and she was what people usually called a goddess. All of them had been summoned to another world to become heroes who would defeat the Demon King. So far, it seems cliché, but pretty soon, things will get kind of crazy. The guys stand there dumbfounded, wondering what all this hero business is about. She then explains that they will be transported to a world called Burge, to an empire called Haijin. The fools stand there with their mouths open, not understanding much of it. Meanwhile, Takafuji can only think about how this is just like the plot of any random story. However, the angel continues, explaining that they will soon leave this place and arrive in that other world. But before that happens, they will all receive a gift. Her hand appears over each of their heads, and she tells them that with this, each of them will receive a special ability. They should be careful not to be corrupted by this power and should lead people down the right path. She wishes them good luck, and the scene shifts to the castle. Slowly, Takafuji opens his eyes and finds himself in a room with everyone else. A slightly tired-looking girl says that apparently the summoning was a success. The old men around them all celebrate, saying, "The saint is truly reliable." Now the world would finally become a safe place again. Or so they say before telling everyone to be quiet. A man stands up and thanks them all for coming to this world. His name is Lazen, and he is the emperor of Haijin. The guy even kneels, and together with everyone else, begs them to defeat the Demon King. Takafuji notices that at least they're being treated like nobles. At that moment, a glasses-wearing fool steps forward and asks His Majesty not to act like that. He then says he wants to ask whether there's a way for them to return to their original world. Someone steps forward and says she will answer that. The girl introduces herself as Saint Aizia and says they can indeed return to their original world. However, that will only be possible in a month when the full moon is in the sky again. And so, anyone who doesn't intend to fight the Demon King can stay peacefully in the royal castle for a month and then go back home. Our boy thinks this feels like a tourist trip to explore another place. The girls wonder what will happen during the month they're gone. According to the saint's explanation, the timeline in their world won't change, and they'll be sent back to the exact same place. Our boy thinks all of this seems way too convenient. Something feels off. Then the saint asks who wants to return after a month and says they only need to say so, and no one will stop them. The group looks like they want to speak up, but she just pleads with them to save her country and this world. Takafuji thinks that normally this would be the moment when some hero wannabe steps forward and declares they'll fight for them. But here, there's only silence, meaning it looks like his class doesn't have a hero. The guy with glasses then says everyone seems a little uncertain and asks if they can make this decision later. The king sits there with his eyes closed, and our boy simply notices that, for now, everyone is pretty calm. Then Lazen says that in 1 month, they'll be able to choose whether they want to return to their world or sign a contract to become heroes here. Today is a celebration, so they should enjoy themselves. Our boy thanks them and immediately goes to try the food. Tasting another world's cuisine is perfect. He's excited to find out what ingredients are used in a fantasy world. But suddenly, the same portal that appeared beneath his feet in the classroom shows up again. He assumes it must be the work of the Empire's mages, who have already mastered their magic to this extent. He's genuinely eager to experience everything this fantasy world has to offer. But then someone calls out to him. They want to know why he's the only one with a circle beneath his feet. Before he can process what's happening, he finds himself back in the same place where he met the goddess, the so-called Path of Souls. The blonde appears, introducing herself, but she seems a little confused. He greets her, saying they've met again, but she asks if he wasn't just there a moment ago. He replies that he was. The poor girl doesn't quite understand why this is happening. He wants to know if he's about to be summoned somewhere else, and she says probably. The problem is, there's a rule that everyone who enters this place must receive a talent, so she places her hand on his head once again. She wishes him good luck, but our boy complains that sending him back and forth like this is irresponsible. During this whole process, he remembers that the previous circle was purple, while this one is yellow and has different symbols. Then he realizes he's tied to a chair, gagged, and figures this is no time for analysis. An old man approaches, saying it looks like the summoning was a success. Another one beside him says, the boy will be called Test Number 12. The old man comes closer, commenting that it seems he has an offensive type magic eye. Being referred to as a test subject, Takafuji isn't interested in this situation at all. It seems these summonings are much more dangerous than he imagined. The two lunatics start smiling, saying they'll now proceed with the experiment. It's more than obvious to our boy that these are some of those crazy scientists. The man steps forward with his scalpel, saying it's time to find out what his magic eye is all about. The old man explains that there are records stating that humans summoned from another world develop a magic eye upon arrival, and his job is to prove that it's true. Our boy quickly realizes that this so-called magic eye must be the gift he received from the goddess when he arrived in this world. The old man stretches out his hand, explaining that it would be problematic if the boy flew into a rage or lost control. That's why he'll be put under hypnosis. For a second, Takafuji is startled, but then he simply watches the man cast his magic circle. The old man realizes that not only is the effect minimal, it actually seems like it isn't working at all. The problem is, this is supposed to be an advanced hypnosis spell. Takafuji finds it ridiculous that this is what they call advanced magic. At that moment, the other man calls for the doctor. Takafuji's left eye holds the magic eye of time, while his right eye contains the magic eye of truth. The man is shocked and celebrates, saying that possessing 2 eyes of such caliber is extremely rare. Immediately, they pull out their tools, saying they must begin testing right away because this is incredible. However, Takafuji knows that if they start surgery without hypnosis, it will be nothing short of torture. He absolutely doesn't want that to happen and wonders if he can escape using his magic eye. Suddenly, a circle appears beneath his feet. The scientists look confused, but our boy and we already know exactly what's happening. He appears before the goddess, who's once again looking like a fool. She says this is the 3rd time and asks if he likes her that much. Our boy simply says it's inevitable. Then he asks whether she has any idea why this is happening. She doesn't really know what to say, admitting this is the first time something like this has happened and that she'll have to investigate further. Takafuji realizes that by now he's seen this woman so many times that he's casually chatting with a goddess. But before he can get any answers, he appears before a young, noble girl. An elf praises her, saying it's incredible that she managed to summon a humanoid monster on her first try. However, our boy does not appreciate being called a monster. In this world, he's treated like a creature and almost forced into a subordination contract. But then the magic circle activates again. He reappears in front of the goddess, already smiling. She asks if he isn't tired of all this. Our boy just wants to know why the summoning keeps happening over and over again. She then says she has an idea, but there isn't much time, so she'll have to explain it briefly. She explains that the target of a summoning must have a strong soul, as that's necessary to cross between worlds. And it seems the boy has an extremely strong and rare soul. Takafuji says he isn't even a saint or a good person, so it's strange that he has such a pure soul. She says it isn't about purity, but simply about how strong it is. What he needs is for his soul to bind itself to one of these worlds by activating the hero's contract, and then this will stop happening. The scene then shifts to a castle, where a girl holding an orb says he now has the ability to steal abilities. He's impressed by the girl's beauty. And in this 4th summoning, he receives another gift. He runs straight toward her to form the hero's contract, but before he can begin, the teleportation activates again. On the 5th time, he's summoned through dark magic. The girl is exhausted, sweating with her clothes all torn, while he appears completely relaxed at the top of a castle on Pico Mountain. On the 6th summoning, he's brought in as the resurrected demon lord, and all the monsters celebrate. But now, back in the sky, the angel comments that he's been accumulating incredible abilities. He's impressed, but then she says the next summoning will probably be the last. That's why she'll now combine all his abilities, and when he's summoned again, he should check his status. He'll probably be able to see it with his right eye. Inside a castle, someone welcomes the hero. He calmly opens his eyes, thinking, here we go again. But suddenly, he's in this place with other people. A high school student named Ryu Shinzaki and another girl named Tamaki Kurosawa. She calls out to her friends and a final girl named Aoi Isogai appears. At that moment, someone on the throne speaks. The king says that according to legend, they must be heroes. The protagonist notices that everyone summoned here knows each other, except him. Everyone wonders why he was randomly summoned along with these 3. They all turn to the king, who asks whether the 3 of them are the heroes, and he's just an extra person who got dragged along. The other 3 confirm it, and the man says this is the first time he's ever heard of such a thing. Then another girl arrives, asking if they're the heroes from another world. She introduces herself as the first princess and personally takes credit for summoning them, saying they should be grateful. Our boy immediately realizes she's one of those annoyingly self-important princesses. She then informs them that they're now in the kingdom of the rising sun, a place inhabited not only by humans, but also demi-humans and demons. Obviously, the demons are the enemies led by the Demon King. They have their own nation and are invading every territory. That demoness really does seem dangerous. Careful, young mortals. That's why all of humanity joined forces to summon heroes. However, only women of royal blood could do it, and of course, she was the chosen one. Each country is obligated to train the heroes it summons to kill the Demon King. They must have realized by now what a brilliant plan this is. However, Takafuji understands that their plan is basically to summon a bunch of heroes and hope someone takes care of the problem. The princess asks them to become stronger as representatives of this kingdom and kill that shameless Demon King. At that moment, Tamaki speaks up with a question. How are they supposed to return to their original world? The princess simply says that's impossible. After all, they should feel honored to be the proud heroes of the Kingdom of the Sun and should be grateful for their situation. Our boy is fuming, thinking these bastards need to take some customer service lessons from the Kingdom of Hyjin. The king then tells them to place their hands on the stone to discover the talents they received as heroes. The tablet is brought forward, and when Ryu places his hand on it, he receives the limit break ability. Oi Isegai receives the magic barrier ability, and Kurosawa gets magic affinity. Meanwhile, our dear Takafuji receives the detection ability. At least he has a blessing. But considering how simple it seems, it doesn't look all that impressive. After that, the kingdom's people begin measuring their talents and physical and magical capabilities. Ryu has superhuman physical abilities. Isegai has a natural talent for creating barriers and a high magical power measurement. Meanwhile, Tamaki also has great magical aptitude, but is focused on destructive magic. As for our boy, he has no talent for manipulating magic at all. He realizes he came to another world only to be weaker than all the girls, and he isn't happy about that. Already exhausted on the floor, he mutters that it doesn't matter, since they're clearly the real heroes here. That night, they gather in Ryu's room to discuss their future. Our boy looks around, wondering why Ryu's room is so much bigger than his. Meanwhile, the two girls want to know why he's even there if he isn't a real hero. That leaves him stunned, but our boy decides not to answer. Tamaki then says she isn't really worried about him, but the protagonist notices she's clearly concerned about him getting too involved in all this. She's obviously not an honest girl. Ryu then says the detection ability he has could actually be very important. Takafuji notices that each of them has a very different opinion of him. Ryu then says that even if the boy is weak, Aoi can just put a magic barrier around him. She agrees, saying that if he wants that, then fine. Our guy just thinks that for someone so quiet, she's actually really cute. That's when he stops to think that all three of them are really attractive. Some people really are lucky in life. Tamaki then wants to know if it's really okay for them to stay in this country. Ryu is about to say something when someone else comments that the country isn't bad and the treatment is nice. They all look at our boy, who's signaling for them to stay quiet. In his notebook, he's written that people are listening to their conversation, so it's best not to say anything suspicious. The three of them stand there dumbfounded while he realizes the so-called blessing of detection is already proving useful. Even though he has no physical or magical talent, it's truly a remarkable ability. He can sense the presence of people or creatures beyond walls. For example, right now, he knows exactly who's spying on them from outside. He's in his own room. He tries to keep the maids away, but they always come back. He then writes in his notebook and asks Aoi to cast a soundproof barrier. It wouldn't hurt to try, and she begins her chant. The circle spreads, but she laments that it isn't very strong and won't last long. Ryu praises her, calling her amazing. She gets a little flustered. Meanwhile, Takafuji realizes these bastards are going to flirt right in front of him. Then Tamaki wants to know why they're spying on their conversation in the first place. Ryu says it's obvious. After all, they're heroes with enough power to destroy a nation, so it's too risky to leave them unchecked. But she angrily points out that it makes no sense since they were forced to come here. That's when Takafuji mentions that this country seems desperate. He doesn't understand this world's standards, but he suspects they're in a financial crisis. That's because the king is personally involved in numerous affairs, which is unusual. On top of that, he has very few vassals for a castle this size. Tamaki says she noticed that too, but at least the food is good. It's simple but full of spices and delicious flavors. Takafuji, however, doesn't seem to enjoy the food and wonders if there's something wrong with his sense of taste. His friends comment that their rooms feel more like soldiers' quarters than heroes' rooms, and our boy thinks to himself that they haven't even seen his tiny room yet. Since they've never been summoned anywhere else, they have nothing to compare it to. But he still remembers his arrival in Haijin very clearly. Then he tells the three of them that they need to consider an escape plan from this country, since his detection ability lets him avoid all surveillance. In the meantime, they also have to figure out how to return to their original world and get out of here. Since the three of them are considered this place's only hope, there's no way they'll simply let that hope return to its own world. Besides, even though the princess said there was no way to go back, it seemed like a lie or something she was hiding. Ryu says he agrees with the boy. The problem is that they're still weak and don't know enough, so for now, they need to observe things for a while. Suddenly, Tamaki moves closer to our boy. She comments on his yellow eye and asks what it is. Our boy quickly covers his face, realizing he forgot about that detail. After all, it isn't common for a Japanese person to have a yellow eye. But Ryu just says everyone has secrets they don't want to share. So it's best not to bother the guy about it. Every teenager goes through a phase like this, but eventually you grow out of it. For now, they should just ignore it. Our boy notices that Ryu thinks he's wearing a contact lens to look stylish, like a protagonist. But maybe that's actually a great excuse, so he tells them to behold the power of the mystical eye. Sometime later, he's back in his room, wondering what's up with this eye. He checks his status, and man, there are a lot of attributes listed. The problem is that, just like us, he doesn't know this world's average, so he can't say for sure how strong or weak he is. But judging by the physical tests, maybe they're bad, or something is off. Then he decides to check his abilities. He has a different ability in each eye, the Demon King's dark magic, the ability to steal abilities, and finally, detection. He then notices he has some strange attributes, probably received when he was summoned as a monster. He belongs to the demonic race and is classified as a vampire with the rank of Baron. He has a debuff called Hatred of the Sun God. During the day, his attributes are reduced to 1/10, and he can't use his abilities. Now it all makes sense. He struggled during the tests because he was exposed to sunlight, and the food tasted bad because it had garlic in it. Not to mention, when he looks at the girls, he finds himself strangely interested in biting their necks and drinking some fresh blood. This whole time, he's been so focused on using detection that he forgot to check what was happening inside his own body. Multiple strange eyes, vampire traits, and all sorts of mutations. He can't even understand what he is anymore. Little by little, he starts remembering everything that happened. After recalling it all and considering every summoning, here's what he has. The detection ability lets him sense any presence near him. He then grabs an old spoon and says that with another ability, he can consume the energy in a material and create a weapon. With that, the cast iron spoon transforms into a knife. The red eye has motion detection, absolute measurement, long-range vision, microscopic vision, night vision, clairvoyance, illusions, X-ray vision, photographic memory, and perception of external gazes. My God, what a list. He notices that at least everything is vision-related. It's some kind of eye 2.0. What he doesn't quite understand is the yellow eye. The description states that magic circles seen by that eye can be transferred to his pupil and activated at will. He decides that later he'll have to take some time to study the magic of this world. The problem is that the list of abilities is long, and there are several he doesn't understand. At least the vampirism part isn't too complicated. If he drinks enough of someone's blood to kill them, they turn into a ghoul. If they're a virgin, they become a subordinate vampire if he drinks their blood. If not, the person simply turns into a ghoul. Additionally, he can simply kill someone, give them a little of his blood, and they'll become his servant too. Two interesting parts are that if he drains all the blood, he can steal the person's memories and also their abilities. As long as he can use his powers freely at night, it sure won't be hard for him to get stronger. But first, he needs to adapt to this body and this world. The next day, under the sunlight, someone introduces herself as the Knight Commander of the Kingdom of the Rising Sun. The peculiar blonde's name is Agiana Ishida. Our boy, who's just a little bit sexist, says it's amazing that there's a female Knight Commander in this place. Maybe that's possible in fantasy worlds, or maybe it has something to do with their financial problems. Then the woman calls out to the two girls, saying they seem to have talent for magic, but they still need to learn the basics of martial arts. Normally, they would start with strength training, but she doesn't think that will be necessary. Our boy, however, isn't excited about this. Apparently, his stats aren't that impressive, considering Ryu has 1,500 strength and everything else above 1,000. Tamaki has more HP than him and 3,500 intuition, while Aoi has slightly less intuition, but a bit more in everything else. From the moment they appeared, the three of them already had stats that surpassed the limits of a human in this world. Then Agiana tells them to choose what suits them best and later learn the basics of martial arts. However, the fool over there will be different. She laments that first they need to build up his physical strength. The problem is that the boy is doing push-ups under the sun, which is destroying his attributes. Not only is he weaker during the day, but he also gets severe headaches. Agiana says she'll personally train him, so he'd better take it seriously. But the poor guy is already getting dizzy, and there's no way for him to escape this. Suddenly, the princess, who's annoying as hell, asks for permission to enter with her group. That's exactly what Takafuji is thinking too. However, she isn't alone. There are other people beside her. Since the woman next to the princess is standing so close to her, she's probably someone of high status as well. She's a beautiful woman, but her expression is cold, like a doll wearing a fake smile. Agiana greets the princesses and asks what brings them there. Takafuji immediately stops training and sits back, completely relaxed and curious to see what happens. The other girl simply greets them politely, while the annoying princess dramatically states that she put aside her commitments to come say hello. So everyone should be grateful. Our boy just laughs at her until the other woman steps forward. She introduces herself as the second princess and says it's a pleasure to meet him. That afternoon, she wants to have a conversation with him. The scene then shifts to a chamber in the castle. Standing in front of a board, she explains that they'll have lessons there, but he finds it highly suspicious that he's getting a separate lesson. The other heroes are also having lessons, but with the first princess in a different room. The truth is, all of this is because the first princess refuses to teach someone who isn't a hero. To her, that would be insulting and absurd. He doesn't care much, but he swears that one day he'll get revenge for this. The second princess then says she'll begin the lesson, but our boy wants to ask some questions first. He asks if the first princess is older than her since she is called the second princess, but she explains that no, things are complicated. To sum it up, she says the first princess is the true heir to the throne. Takafuji knows royal succession is always a messy affair. Obviously, he doesn't want to get involved in something like that. During the lesson, he learns that the Kingdom of the Rising Sun was founded by the hero who defeated the previous demon king. That hero was a mage. In other words, the founder of this place was a witch, which is why witch worship is deeply rooted throughout the kingdom. The throne is always passed down through female heirs. They choose a king to marry the queen, and only then does he become regent and govern the country. However, If the queen requests a divorce, he stops being king. Thanks to the second princess, he learns about history and the fundamentals of magic, but he's already exhausted and goes to sleep. Later that night, he starts studying magic since the next day will be a practical test. At least he managed to borrow a book from the second princess. He knows she definitely didn't like that he fell asleep during class, and she didn't like him asking for a book either. But just like a doll, she simply smiled and said it was fine. Looking at the pentagram, he says it's time to test what he couldn't manage the night before. He then activates the true mystic eye and observes the circle. In theory, he should be able to record it in his retina and use it whenever he wants. The problem is that nothing is happening. He isn't even sure whether it's activating at all. He also tries with other magic circles, but as expected, nothing happens. So far, everything has been a complete failure. Then he remembers he has the 2.0 eye, sees some paper nearby, and starts drawing the circles. The vision in that eye is so good that he can perfectly recall every circle he's seen since before coming to this world. In theory, that should have been impossible because of the old man's hypnosis. But the eye is completely different, and he's able to draw the circles with ease. As he stares at the paper, energy radiates from his eye. It's something he's never felt before, so maybe he's finally activated this thing. Excited to test whether it's working, he rings the little bell. A maid enters, asking if she's been summoned, and our boy explains that he needs a small favor. Before she can react, he activates his eye and successfully casts the old man's hypnosis spell. A second later, her eyes become unfocused. He runs his hand across her face and confirms that the magic worked. To test it further, he asks what color her underwear is, and she answers black. Not that he didn't already know. After all, he has X-ray vision, right? Considering everything that's happened, he wonders, maybe the ability to steal magic can only store circles from the same world where he obtained it. If that's true, then the only magic he really has is advanced hypnosis. That's one possibility, but he can't be sure. When he was summoned to other worlds, he also saw every circle. If he concentrates, maybe he can summon them too. With that, he recalls one of them and successfully creates the magic circle in front of him. Instead of being sent to another world, he's teleported to a forest just ahead. Apparently, he can use this as a teleportation spell, and he can combine the red eye's long-range vision with the yellow eye's portal ability. With that, he can leave the castle anytime he wants. Now that he's far away and there's no danger in testing other spells, he touches a wall and creates a dark magic circle. With this ability, he can control inanimate objects, move them freely, and store them in his shadow. Objects controlled by this magic can't interact with anything outside the spell's influence. However, he can release the control, allowing them to interact normally again. While it's a useful spell, it also has some inconvenient limitations. With dark magic, he can also use Shadow Step. The ability lets him enter one, surface and exit through another nearby. Inside a thin tree, he finds it strange that it feels like he's in a spacious area. He then decides to test the creation ability again. A rock begins to dissolve, and he transforms it into a sword. He focuses and starts recalling every movement his eye captured from the commander. With just one look, he memorized them and can now effortlessly execute the same cuts. Now that it's nighttime, he plans to practice as much as possible since he'll be exhausted by morning. After some time, he's completely drained but feels like something has improved. Then a window pops up, stating that he obtained swordsmanship level 1. With that, he learns how to unlock abilities. Now it's time to figure out how to level them up. Using his detection ability, he senses something nearby. From the bushes, he spots some kind of monstrous rabbit carrying another creature in its mouth. It looks like a bird, but it has fur, which is strange. Using his identification skill, he finds out it's a demon bird called a gecko. The problem is that, judging by its stats, the damn thing is actually quite strong. Then he remembers hearing some people in the castle talk about how this creature's feathers are used for various things, which makes him wonder how such weak people are hunting these things. As he walks through the forest, he finds other creatures that seem weaker. However, their lowest attribute is 600, and some even surpass his own. Clearly, this is a high-level monster forest, which is a problem. With his current stats, he could win a one-on-one fight. The problem is that there's a high chance multiple enemies will appear. Meanwhile, back at the castle, the incredibly beautiful Igiana is walking through the halls and calling for Her Highness. She tells the second princess that the area is secure, but even so, she shouldn't be wandering alone at night. However, the princess then says she wants to have a conversation with her. She asks whether it's true that artifacts aren't being used in Takafuji's training. The commander replies that none of the heroes are using artifacts yet. The girl presses the issue, asking why, and pointing out that, sooner or later, they'll have to use them. The woman glances to the side and then says that artifacts increase strength, but these heroes aren't ready yet. Without enough physical and mental strength, they could become too dependent on them. That's why, for now, the best approach is to monitor them and prepare them gradually. The girl lowers her gaze and smiles, saying she really should never have questioned the strongest human. The commander remains silent for a second before, saying that her smile has lost its former shine. The second princess turns and says she hadn't even noticed that. Aegiana then asks for her opinion of the first princess, and she responds that she knows the girl is talented, dedicated, and ambitious. However, the commander asks whether she truly believes that. Then the second princess says the place is safe from danger, but not from people who listen in on conversations. She then wishes her goodnight and leaves. The commander remains there, thinking that Princess El Aliyah is being very cautious, but she shouldn't be afraid of her. A few days pass, and our boy is getting used to this world. Obviously, the other heroes are making progress, and he's the slowest when it comes to physical development. On the first day, Ryu already looked comfortable wielding a sword, and now he's continuing down the path of a swordsman. Tamaki has started using a staff, but her magic has a peculiarity. She slams her spells into the ground as if she's wielding a giant hammer, and he can't understand the logic behind it. Meanwhile, Aoi is training with a bow. Normally, archers need protection, but since she has a barrier, that actually makes sense. So now they have Ryu, who's extremely strong in close combat, Tamaki, who blows everything up both from a distance and up close, and Aoi, who's a self-sufficient archer while also defending others. Our boy, on the other hand, has only been able to train properly for the past 3 days. He's already noticed that they're only teaching him how to throw weapons from a distance. They're training him in stealth movement and how to disable traps. It's obvious they want to turn him into a scout to make full use of his detection ability. But when night falls, he returns to the forest to practice his abilities. At the moment, he's practicing controlling objects freely and remotely. He directs the dagger's trajectory and cancels control at the last second so it sticks into the tree. However, as he looks up at the moon, he's still furious about that damn sun curse. He wonders if it'll disappear once he levels up. For now, all he can do is keep improving his abilities. The demon bird Keko is there, drooling as it prepares to eat when something comes rushing toward it. Man, it's Takafuji flying at full speed. The guy is practically off the ground. Now he's using his dark mana control combined with object control to restrain creatures. With that, he easily approaches, locks eyes with the beast, and activates hypnosis. The monster freezes, allowing him to get close without any risk. He finishes it off, lifts it with dark magic, and stores it in the void. Man, he can enter his own void without any problem. And since he's a vampire, you already know what he's about to do. Taking advantage of the fact that no one is watching, he drinks the monster's blood. Once he's done, he leaves the area. He quickly locates his next target, but this one is ugly as hell, and he knows it isn't going to taste good. Unfortunately, beggars can't be choosers, so he keeps hunting until there's nothing left to do. As dawn breaks, he teleports back to his room. So far, this has been his daily routine. Then Nala enters his room, greets him, and tells him to wake up. Our boy has been trying to use hypnosis on her as little as possible, but it's unavoidable since he needs to gather information about this kingdom. Through this, he learns that the current queen had been unable to bear children for a long time. In a country ruled by women, that was a major problem, since the queen wouldn't have a daughter to inherit the throne. To make matters worse, young noble girls were mysteriously dying. To prevent the royal line from ending, they accepted a noble woman as one of the king's concubines, and that woman gave birth to a child. That child was Aliyah, the second princess. She was raised with love until she turned 7, but that's when the true queen finally gave birth to a daughter. Her name was Amanda, meaning the beloved girl. True to her name, the queen loved her far more than the other girl, especially since her daughter had inherited an incredible talent for magic. With that, Aliyah was no longer considered a potential heir. The moment Amanda turned 7, she automatically assumed the position of first princess. Everyone celebrated while Aliyah stayed in the corner, pretending not to care. But she realized that from that day forward, her existence no longer had any meaning in this world. She was forgotten by the people, abandoned by her own mother, and no one in the royal family wanted to interact with her. That was how Aliyah was forced to live in solitude, like a doll. Takafuji thinks she's just like him, since no one expects anything from either of them. She then smiles at him and gently asks him to wake up, telling him that even though the lessons are boring, they're essential for his survival. Our boy is exhausted, yawning, and wondering why she's nagging him today, considering she normally doesn't bother him. She then comments that she heard he's learning espionage techniques during training. Even though he isn't talented in magic, it seems like he has a good chance of making use of what he's learning here. One thing our protagonist doesn't understand is why he can't properly use the magic taught in this world. He knows it's probably a rare case, since even Nala, a simple maid, can easily manipulate multiple objects. However, Aliyah says that Commander Ajiana Ishida is a busy woman and wouldn't have taken the time to train him if she didn't see potential in him. But the boy replies that maybe she simply sees the advantage in being known as the person who trained one of the heroes. That's when Aliyah slams the table and says no. She's certain he can become strong, and that's why she wants to see him put in the effort. He's a little confused by how close she is, but she turns away and tells him to follow her. In the next scene, they're descending a long staircase. After what feels like an endless path, the two of them stand before a massive door. She casts a spell and says they'll continue his training in this room. Then she adds that even though he's a hero, people call him a failure. She turns to him and asks if he doesn't find that shameful. Takafuji once again wonders what got into this girl today to make her so fired up. He knows that ever since her misfortune, she's been suppressing her emotions. She's been faking it so well that people started calling her the doll princess. But at that moment, she's different. She's no longer the quiet, reserved girl he met. She then enters the room, and on the ceiling is a massive magic circle. This will serve its purpose, she says, before warning him that at this rate, he'll be exiled from the castle. Before he can explain himself, she recites a quote from the former queen. They have no obligation to nurture incompetent people who come to this kingdom. Our boy still doesn't care much and simply says he isn't incompetent. He has the detection ability, which is quite useful. She agrees, but at the same time, he isn't putting in as much effort as the others. As someone carrying a blessing, he should take fate into his own hands and do his best. Poor Takafuji is always falling asleep in class because he stays up all night. But even though she doesn't know it, He's been putting in effort, hunting in the dead of night. So he tells her that he is trying. He's doing his best within his limits. It just doesn't look as impressive as what those three can do, nor is he as academically skilled as she is. But then Aaliyah reveals that this magic room has a barrier. He places his hand on the door, and she tells him that no one will hear his screams. The boy, however, just wants to know how to open the damn thing. And that's when she suddenly stares at him, raises her foot, and kicks him in the back. What the hell? He slams face first into the wall. He turns around completely baffled, and she tells him he's in a much better position than she is, yet he refuses to do his best. He needs to understand that if he's expelled from this castle, the creatures outside will kill him instantly. That's why he has to work hard to survive, even if it means embarrassing himself. Our boy doesn't care much about the kick. He seems to enjoy getting beaten by women. That much is clear. In fact, he's impressed by her, realizing that the doll princess is no longer in that room. Then she shouts at him to take control of his own life. Suddenly, the guy starts laughing, bursting into a full-blown fit. He even says she's really a beautiful girl. He truly underestimated her and never expected her to be such a strong person. That's when she asks if he's mocking her, but he answers that he isn't, since he's actually one of the 4 heroes most concerned about his own safety. She realizes he isn't joking and admits that maybe she was the one underestimating him. As soon as he activates his aura, she notes that, strangely, he seems much stronger than he did just a moment ago. He simply thanks her for telling him the truth and says that since he's close to being exposed, he needs to come up with a plan. The truth is that, for now, he still wants to stay there and gather as much information as possible. The next day, on the training grounds, he thinks about showing the true strength of his blessing just to avoid being expelled. The problem is that they still won't be entering any dungeons, and under the sunlight, he's completely weak. Once training wraps up, our boy decides the best course of action is to talk to the commander. He calls her over for a chat, hoping to convince the queen not to expel him. But the scene immediately cuts to her, saying that will be quite difficult. He asks if she truly believes his ability is useless. It might seem like he isn't putting in any effort during training, but he is. Before he can continue, though, the commander interrupts him and says she actually doesn't think his ability is useless at all. In fact, she even wants him to join her mage brigade. That surprises him, and she explains that his ability is extremely valuable in the dungeons they raid. He could become an essential asset on any kind of expedition. However, he needs to understand that his words carry no weight and will never be enough to convince the queen. But if he chooses to serve the kingdom as a soldier instead of as one of its weakest heroes, that would be reason enough for them not to exile him. Our protagonist pauses to think. He knows that if he joins this country's knights, he'll be trapped in this nation. It isn't something he can decide so easily. So he tells her he appreciates the offer, but needs some time to think about it. She says that's fine and tells him that if he ever needs someone, he can talk to her. Our boy is direct and asks if she means he should come to her once he gets exiled. She simply looks out the window and says, maybe. A few days pass. Our boy is sleeping on his desk, wondering if it's true that people from the neighboring nation are coming for a visit. She explains that yes, they are, because there's going to be a celebration. Since numerous guests have been invited, there will be no classes or training that day. Our boy is exhausted, wondering why no one warned him about this disaster. But she just says students who sleep in class don't deserve to know these things. He realizes even this damn woman doesn't like him very much. Sometime later, the Lemon Cavalry enters the city. Everyone is celebrating and setting off fireworks, while our boy thinks that for a financially ruined country, they're sure spending a lot on this party. Maybe he should show up at the celebration since no one would notice him. Or maybe it'd be terrible to appear there and have to explain his existence to those people. They might even want to investigate him and find out why 4 heroes were summoned. That would be a pain, so he dismisses the idea. But it's not like he can't find out what's happening there. So he activates his 2.0 eye, and his awareness begins navigating through the hallways. He sees the 2 princesses and thinks his teacher looks stunning in her new dress. But as always, her smile still seems a little fake. He sees all the fancy food on the tables and immediately realizes that Nala has been lying. Earlier, while talking to her, he discovered that one reason this kingdom is going bankrupt is these ridiculously extravagant parties. It seems the queen is obsessed with maintaining an image of splendor and luxury, completely draining the treasury. Then something surprising happens. He sees the group standing in front of Ryu and immediately knows. These are the heroes from another country. Were also summoned here. One of them has a particularly unique appearance. With blonde hair, it's hard to believe he's Japanese. He decides to use his identification skill and finds out the guy's name is Masayoshi Date. He thinks that's a pretty classic name for a hero. But what he really wants to know is why this guy is shouting at Ryu. He reads his lips to find out what he's saying, and the blonde guy is shouting Takafuji's name, demanding that they bring him immediately because he's challenging him to a duel. Damn, this story is moving fast. The party is over in no time, and now Aliyah is announcing that Takafuji is coming. All the heroes in the room turn to look, and our boy realizes there's no escaping this. Masayoshi then steps forward and formally challenges him to a duel. The room goes silent, everyone curious to hear his response. Lazy as ever, our boy just asks why it has to be a duel of all things. Masayoshi yells that it's to prove to the goddess that Takafuji isn't worthy of her love. Takafuji is a little confused, but the blonde tells him to stop playing dumb. Masayoshi then declares that he knows very well that Takafuji ended up in the white space where he met the goddess who brought them to this world. The protagonist just says, "So what?" since everyone went through that. But then Masayoshi reveals that he proposed to the goddess, to which she replied that if he could defeat Takafuji Lanori, she would consider it. Our boy instantly realizes that the damn woman isn't just trying to dump her problems onto him, she's also trying to get rid of him. He's definitely going to make her pay for this the next time he sees her. Strangely, the other heroes look at each other, confused by all this white space and goddess talk. At that moment, Takafuji realizes they were summoned differently, since they have no idea what he's talking about. It would be too much trouble to explain everything. So for now, he decides to just play dumb. So he tells the guy he has no idea what he's talking about, but he accepts the duel. The blonde smirks and our boy says now they just need to decide on the format. If it were a one-on-one combat duel, that would be way too easy. After all, unlike the other heroes, he doesn't have a superhuman body or a combat specialized class. Surely, this guy didn't go through all this trouble just to bully someone who has every disadvantage in the world. If that were the case, it'd be downright pathetic. Masayoshi shouts that of course not, and he'll accept any duel Takafuji proposes. The crowd is shocked that he agreed to something so stupid. Then our boy mentions a dungeon where he's supposed to train with the knights. They can compete to see who will be the first to kill the boss on the first floor. Masayoshi agrees, saying it's a great idea and accepting the challenge. But Ryu warns our boy that while he might be able to navigate the dungeon easily, he won't be able to kill the boss. However, our boy just smiles and says he has a little plan. The duel is scheduled for the next day, and shortly after the duel, the queen asks if he's Takafuji Lanori. She demands that he explain why he accepted a duel and got completely pulverized. The boy thinks pulverized is the perfect word. Masayoshi is a force of nature. No creature in that place stood a chance, and even the boss fell in seconds. On the other hand, our boy used detection to sneak past everything. The objective conclusion is that he was utterly crushed in this duel. The queen then says she's been ignoring just how lazy and weak he is. She believed in him because the Knight Commander saw potential in him. But with this act, he brought shame upon the kingdom. And that's something she cannot forgive. Takafuji already knows what's coming, and sure enough, the queen declares that Takafuji Lenori is banished from the kingdom. The first princess seems pleased, while the other two girls look a bit sad. But the one smiling the widest, completely happy, is our boy. That bastard definitely wanted this to happen. The queen asks if he has any objections, and he says yes. He wants to know exactly how he harmed the kingdom. She says it's obvious. By losing the duel, he stained the kingdom's reputation. He then explains that if it were just a race, then yes, he lost. But the duel's actual wager was about worthiness. It was simply a contest to determine who deserved to be loved by a certain girl. Additionally, promised not to let anyone outside the duel know the results. Not to mention, he isn't even considered a hero in this kingdom, and his presence was never revealed to other nations. With no power, no influence, and no one even knowing who he is, there's no way he brought dishonor to this place. After all, the duel was nothing more than a silly game. However, he took advantage of entering that dungeon to use his detection ability. A few guys toss over a bag of money, and he says he obtained this small reward. The queen and princess are impressed, and he says he's offering this little treasure to Her Majesty. She seems pleased, while our boy simply states that obtaining it was easy enough with his ability. The truth is, Takafuji just doesn't want to leave the castle yet, so he uses these coins to buy himself more time there. That way, he gets the queen and Masayoshi's nonsense off his back for a while. And now, he's back to his usual nights of hunting, leveling up peacefully. As long as no one knows he's still getting stronger, he's fine. The only annoying part is that he's starting to get sick of drinking that bird's blood. He glances to the side and realizes he's in the same spot where he started hunting that night. The forest is really messing with his sense of direction, and he wonders if there's another way to use detection. He activates his demon vision along with detection and notices a barrier leading to another area. It's some kind of illusion that makes people unknowingly change direction, but with his eye he can see through it and wonders if stronger creatures are hidden inside. He can always teleport back if anything dangerous appears, so he steps in. And hiding inside is a giant wolf with its pack. As soon as he takes his first steps, he notices movement nearby. A few wolves are approaching. It's the first time he's dealt with creatures larger than his field of view, so he immediately activates his trap web. A bunch of traps form around him, and within seconds, the wolves are all dead on the ground. If he had to face more than 3 of them at once, it would have been really difficult. Luckily, traps are simple to set up, and the beasts end up getting caught in them. He starts sending the bodies into the void, muttering that at least they seem to give more experience than the birds. A while later, he's back in the forest. In the middle of a lake, there's a tree under the moonlight, and our boy thinks it looks like the perfect setting for a boss fight. The moment he turns around and says, "But this isn't a video game," the boss is already behind him. Man, before he can even react, his arm is gone. What the hell? He's still looking to the side when the beast swings at him, sending him rolling backward into a tree. He doesn't even understand what happened, and the creature is already face to face with him. It's a mystical beast called Fenrir. He quickly realizes this thing isn't a demon, but something entirely different. Maybe it's some kind of mini-boss or something, since he didn't die instantly. He can still escape through the shadows, but that would be difficult given how fast the creature is. But he doesn't have much time. Fenrir is already lunging at him, trying to finish him off with a bite. The monster destroys the tree, but our boy is no longer there. He's already teleported to the top of another tree and flown away using a wing. Remembering the world where he gained his vampire powers, he thinks, "I never expected I'd need to use this so soon." Fenrir looks up and asks why he came there. The fact that it can speak means it's definitely a special kind of beast. Our boy replies that he simply got lost in the forest, but the wolf calls him a liar, saying he clearly crossed the illusion barrier and entered this place intentionally. Takafuji admits he was curious. Normally, an illusion is used to protect something important, and he wanted to know what it was. Fenrir, however, says that's enough talk. He trespassed and killed some of his kind, so he won't be leaving alive. But Takafuji just smirks and says that the more the wolf talks, the more convinced he is that something valuable is hidden here. Now he really wants to know what's so important. The wolf declares that, as a final gift before his next life, he'll tell him. This land is where they made a pact with a witch. He doesn't know why, but ever since that pact, they've been protecting this place. His only duty is to eliminate any threats or monsters that invade. And naturally, an intruder like Takafuji is also a target. With that said, he warns that if the boy stays still, he'll at least die painlessly. But Takafuji is more focused on the fact that his arm is back. Apparently, his vampire regeneration is even more impressive than he imagined. Fenrir prepares to attack, saying it's clear Takafuji is no ordinary human. He lunges forward, stating that there's no way he can let him leave alive. Kafuji tries to dodge, and the area around them explodes. Thanks to his demon eye, he barely manages to read the wolf's movements in time. He tries to fly away, realizing there's no way he can win this fight right now. His plan is to gain some distance by flying, then drop to the ground and teleport out. But mid-fall, the creature launches a barrage of ice attacks. Takafuji raises his arms to protect himself, but the attack hits a tree instead, slicing it clean in half. The wolf turns, his head toward him for just a second. Then, in an instant, he's already lunging in for another bite. Another explosion of force, and he barely escapes to the side. The monster is so fast that he has zero chance of using hypnosis, and it's becoming impossible to find an escape route. He sees a waterfall ahead and wonders how the hell he's going to get out of this. The wolf is coming from above, launching another ice attack while preparing to bite. Our boy braces himself, but this time his wings are completely shredded. Fenrir grins, then comes in for the final attack. But Takafuji grins back, activates his ability on the ground, and sends up a barrage of spikes. Fenrir barely manages to dodge to the side, avoiding being impaled. Takafuji has been storing leftover tree trunks in the other dimension in case something like this happened. The problem is that the situation hasn't exactly gotten easier because of it. As Fenrir locks eyes with him, Takafuji tries to find an opening to use teleportation. He wants to use hypnosis to distract the beast for just a second. Takafuji begins casting dark magic again, muttering that he'll have to buy some time. He pulls out a few daggers, and the wolf prepares to counter. Takafuji knows he has to create at least one opening. He expands his aura while the wolf wonders what the boy is up to. The protagonist knows the creature is overwhelmingly strong. He nearly got his back torn apart by a bite. At the last second, he pulls out more knives and hurls them toward Fenrir's head. The wolf thinks it's a pointless move. Such a poorly planned attack won't work on him. He swings his tail, sending out another ice barrage, but our boy blocks it with his knives, at least thanks to his regeneration. As long as he protects his head and legs, he can keep moving and stay alive. Meanwhile, Fenrir is starting to be impressed by how persistent this kid is. Our boy then activates a black thread trap. The surrounding trees have already been marked, and the wolf gets caught in the bindings. For the first time, Fenrir seems immobilized. Takafuji smirks for a second, but within moments, all the trees shatter. The wolf simply states that something like that wouldn't even leave a scratch. Stunned and terrified, Takafuji goes back to trying to escape, realizing he has only one option left. As he dodges more ice attacks, and the wolf lunges in for another bite, he prays that this will work. He kicks off a tree, launching himself skyward with the Parker move. The wolf assumes he's trying to flee by flying. What an idiot. He sends out another tail attack, declaring that the boy has just made himself an easy target. But as he's been moving, Takafuji has been laying out threads using his other eye, and now the entire area he's traveled through has turned into a teleportation circle. He activates it, saying, "Now there's no way you can escape." The wolf realizes the boy has vanished from above and wonders where he went. But Takafuji is already on Fenrir's back, whispering that the plan worked. Takafuji says, "Goodbye, buddy." With that, he stabs the wolf straight in the eye. The beast howls in agony as Takafuji casually remarks that getting beaten up is kind of his style. But the mystical creature starts thrashing its tail, obliterating everything around it. One of the attacks nearly hits our boy, but now that the beast is blind, dodging is much easier. At first, it seems like he only took out one eye. But no, the kid was quick. He slashed both. The monster is completely blind. But the way it stops moving makes Takafuji realize something. It's trying to locate him by scent. And the bloodthirsty aura radiating from the creature is terrifying. Once again, it lunges in for a bite. But our boy simply says, "Yeah, I think it's time to go." Its attacks have slowed down and teleporting away is now easy. The wolf is left behind, wondering where the hell that bastard went. After a few teleportation jumps, Takafuji collapses onto his bed, completely exhausted. After all that suffering, all he managed to do was slightly injure the creature. But next time, he will win. From that day forward, he begins infiltrating the castle's equipment storage, gathering high-quality materials and metals, just in case another emergency like that ever happens. During the fight, Takafuji managed to steal some of Fenrir's fur. The material has crystallization and hardening properties. As soon as he applies a bit of dark magic, it immediately solidifies. That explains why every time the monster attacked, there was an energy surge in its strikes. If this is a material that reacts to being touched by humans, he wonders what would happen if he crafted a weapon with it. He ends up creating a type of thread called Gleikner. These strands are indestructible no matter how much force is applied to them. And when infused with magic, they harden and crystallize. For him, this is perfect. Not even Fenrir himself would be able to break them. He then gets an idea and modifies the thread to form a glove. A black glove with the same dark hardening and crystallization properties as the threads. Since Fenrir attacked him so many times, he gathered a good amount of material, giving him another interesting idea. The next day, our boy is suited up in a full custom outfit, complete with boots and a suit. Now it's revenge time. A yellow explosion lights up the forest. Startling Fenrir, Takafuji appears with a casual, "Hey, it's been a day since we last saw each other." Fenrir is furious. This damn bastard actually dared to set foot on his land again. The monster is still blind, and Takafuji comments on how beautiful its eyes are. The creature immediately lashes out, telling him to shut up. Our boy is impressed. Even blind, Fenrir is still that accurate. The wolf then warns that no one has ever entered this land twice and left alive. Takafuji notes that between its rage and the pain of losing its eyes, the creature is one stubborn bastard. Its fur is incredible, so obviously he needs to kill it and take more. Fenrir keeps attacking until Takafuji touches a tree. From inside it, several black wolves emerge. The beast has no idea what's happening, as it's bitten from all sides. Takafuji casually remarks that by scent alone, Fenrir should already know what they are. He's being bitten by the corpses of his own kind. The monster roars in fury, demanding to know how Takafuji dares to do something like this. But our boy simply replies that they seemed useful, so he made them his subordinates. Fenrir thrashes around, shaking everything off and sending a few wolves flying, and one of the attacks almost hits Takafuji. The protagonist's attack wasn't effective, but it bought him some time. Even so, the wolf manages to swipe at him with a powerful paw strike. He barely teleports away mid-attack as The wolves surround the trees. As soon as he stops behind a tree to catch his breath, Fenrir is already lunging in for another strike. But another teleport saves him. The monster is getting pissed off by this constant evasion, while Takafuji is now appearing above him. The boss prepares to pounce, ready for the kill. And that's when Takafuji grins and says, "At no point was I ever trying to escape." The creature leaps forward, only to slam into invisible threads, instantly getting caught. Fenrir can't believe it. Even with his sense of smell, he hadn't detected anything. As Takafuji hovered above, the wolf demanded to know what the hell that bastard had done. And our boy explained, "These threads were made from your own fur. That's why you couldn't detect them. They smelled just like you." From the moment he arrived, every attack he took, every wolf he sent out, it had all been a distraction. While the monster was busy, he'd been weaving the trap the entire time. Now that Fenrir was immobilized, there was nothing he could do. Takafuji bid him farewell and activated the thread's compression. The lines tightened, pulling the beast to the ground. The watching wolves stared, in silence. Fenrir, in disbelief, wondered if this was really the end. If he died, the pact would also be broken. But my guy, it was too late for that. Takafuji didn't just kill him. He had already drunk his blood. That single death alone earned him 5 levels and some extra abilities. That's when he noticed something interesting in the system. A unique skill, Bastard King. Then someone called him Master. When he turned around, it was the wolves he'd killed. They were now standing before him, apparently able to communicate. Most likely because of his new ability. He wondered if this skill applied to all his subordinates. One of the wolves then asked him, "Why don't you make Fenrir a subordinate too?" Their former master had been a creature who fought desperately to protect this land and always shielded them. That's why those who once served Fenrir now wanted to follow Takafuji as allies. Takafuji took a deep breath. It wasn't like there was any downside for him in doing that. The problem was, he was already exhausted and running out of energy. Meanwhile, back at dinner in the castle, Ryu pointed out that the first and second princesses didn't seem to get along very well. Maki disagreed, saying it wasn't that, they just had different personalities. Aoi wasn't sure, and started discussing the topic further. Takafuji, however, didn't give a damn. He was too pissed off that his food always had garlic in it. That's when Ryu suddenly suggested that he should help with the situation. Our boy immediately asked why they were dragging him into this. Aoi or Tamaki could handle it. They were women, so they could just talk to the princesses. But Ryu insisted. Takafuji had classes with the second princess and was closer to her, so maybe it'd be easier for him to find a way to bring the two sisters closer. Takafuji simply replied that the first princess was stubborn as hell, and trying to make peace between them would never work. But then Ryu told him not to worry. He just had to ask, and she would listen. Our boy had no idea why, and Ryu explained that it was because she was completely in love with him. Judging by the girl's reactions, our boy realized that Ryu's reputation was going straight down the drain. Ryu then added that if he agreed, he could ask for a free day once a week. And since our boy hated daytime training, he accepted instantly. The problem was that first, he had to talk to the first princess, so he knocked on her door. She was already standing there with her arms crossed, saying she was only talking to him because Ryu had asked her to. So he'd better speak quickly. The moment he stepped inside, he already wanted to go back to his room. Before he could even open his mouth, she declared that for today only, she would allow him to address her directly. He should feel very grateful for such a rare opportunity. He ignored everything she was saying and instead noticed how luxurious her room was. Seeing his reaction, she smugly assumed he was fascinated by the wealth she possessed, riches he would never obtain in his lifetime. He then pointed at a duck figurine and asked if she really liked it. Amanda scoffed, calling him an idiot. She was royalty. Everything she owned was either a gift from her mother or from noble families. Our boy just wanted to disappear from there and decided to get this over with as quickly as possible. So he finally brought up her relationship with the second princess. Amanda immediately cut him off, saying she'd never cared about her. Takafuji realized he shouldn't have accepted this stupid deal. Tired of the theatrics, he flatly stated that Ryu had asked him to help the two princesses talk more. But Amanda replied that she personally had no interest in that. He didn't quite understand why, and she said that as a commoner, he shouldn't even be getting involved. He rubbed his face in frustration. He was going to have to take the easy route. He again mentioned that this was a request from Ryu, and that Ryu would be very sad if this opportunity didn't work out. Suddenly, she became enthusiastic, asking him to explain the details of the plan. At the very least, she was childish enough for that tactic to work. Sometime later, Amanda explained that their relationship hadn't always been this way. When they were younger, they got along very well. They talked and spent all their time together. Aaliyah was always intelligent and loved playing with her and having fun. That's why Amanda had always liked following her around. But one day, out of nowhere, Aaliyah started distancing herself. Shortly after that, Amanda turned 7 and received the title of First Princess, inheriting the right to the throne. That was when she discovered that Aaliyah wasn't really her sister, nor did they share the same mother. From that day forward, everything changed, leading to the strained relationship they had now. The truth was that to become queen, she had to undergo extremely strict training. It was only through that experience that she realized just how exceptional and kind Aaliyah was. She found herself wishing that Aaliyah was still by her side. But the adults never allowed that to happen, and the distance between them only grew. She turned away and said that was all she had to say. Takafuji at least understood now all her arrogance came from the way the adults had raised her. Just like her room, she had nothing that truly reflected who she was. Everything she owned, and even her personality to some extent, had been shaped by others. Acting superior was simply the only way she could express even a little individuality. Amanda then laid her head on the desk and said that, now that she'd shared everything, he should give her some advice. Takafuji told her that she should go to Aaliyah and say, "From now on, I'm calling you my sister." But Amanda replied that if she said something like that, all the maids would start gossiping. He laughed and asked if the maids were somehow above the princess. It was strange that the future queen wasn't even allowed to decide how to act. She tried to explain that it would only cause problems for Aaliyah, but he told her that Aaliyah wasn't as weak as she thought. She hesitated for a moment, then finally said she would consider what he'd said and thanked him. Without saying anything, he simply left the room. Sometime later, he told Nala everything. The maid listened but didn't seem too excited about it. Still, she said she would deliver the message. Our boy knew this was the best way to get the message across, since Nala was also close to the second princess. The next morning, Nala came to him, saying she had something to tell him about the second princess. He asked what it was, and she said that Aaliyah had sent word that today they would have a special training session. Poor Takafuji already knew that meant trouble was coming. In the middle of a busy street, there he was, following the two princesses around. He wondered why they had to come all the way here just for a lesson. Aaliyah explained that getting accustomed to the streets and atmosphere of the city was an important part of social studies. That was why he would be accompanying her to a shop. He asked what they were going to buy, and she suggested that they take a look at some accessories already inside the store. He wondered why a princess was personally shopping for something like this. She was completely engrossed and then asked him which one he thought looked better. Not caring much, he just said both looked nice. That's when Aaliyah told him to focus. The gift wasn't even for her. He was confused, so Nala explained that it was a present for the first princess's birthday. After receiving his message, Aaliyah had replied that the next day they would go out together to buy a present for her newfound sister. He said he understood but wanted to know why they cared about his opinion. Aaliyah said that since he'd entered her room and talked with her for a long time, maybe he knew more about Amanda's tastes than she did. However, he explained that her room only contained gifts and nothing she'd chosen herself, so anything would do. The second princess asked if that meant gifts were useless, but he explained that a gift's value came from the person who gave it. That's why he believed whatever she chose would already be enough. Nala thought the boy was being kind, but he was just giving the fastest answers possible so he could get home and sleep. Still, the second princess was happy and immediately went to buy the gift. The maid praised our boy, saying that thanks to him, they'd come up with this idea. And seeing Alia smile, she added that it was really nice to see her happy again. Aaliyah turned around, asking what they were talking about, and Nala quickly covered it up. 5 days passed. At the very least, he'd been invited to the first princess's birthday party. The place was filled with ridiculously expensive food and high-status guests. Everyone stood around looking like fools, badly drawn, as he put it, while our boy observed everything with his demon eye. As usual, he was listening in on conversations and wondering where the second princess was. Then he spotted her hiding behind a pillar. She seemed nervous about approaching her younger sister. Considering Amanda was talking with Ryu, it was understandable that joining that conversation would be difficult. He decided to play along and give her a hand. So he suddenly appeared beside Aaliyah, making her jump and ask what he was doing there. Takafuji replied that she'd kicked him last time, so she shouldn't feel bad about it. He asked where all that courage from before had gone, then shoved her forward. She stumbled straight into Amanda. The nobles all looked on in confusion, while our boy just hoped this wouldn't turn into a disaster. She had already come this far, and now she just had to hand over the gift. Aaliyah took a deep breath and presented the present to Amanda. Amanda hesitated for a second, then opened the box and looked inside. She then said she wanted to wear it immediately, and Aaliyah helped put it in her hair. She turned to ask how she looked, and Aaliyah said it suited her very well. Amanda smiled, and the party continued as usual. Then Amanda said she wanted another present. She wanted Aaliyah to start calling her little sister. Aaliyah was caught off guard and suddenly found herself remembering their time together as children. She then said she'd be happy to. Amanda was surprised, and they hugged in an emotional moment. Meanwhile, Takafuji just stood there thinking that at least this problem had been solved. Strangely, the king and queen also seemed happy about it, which made him think these girls had been dragging this out for no reason. Ryu told our boy that having him handle this had really been a great idea. Our boy replied that he'd worked hard to make it happen, so he'd better get a good reward. Ryu said okay, he'd try to find something worthwhile. But looking at the two princesses, he was genuinely happy that it had worked out. Takafuji, on the other hand, just thought this guy really did always act like the perfect hero. He then said goodbye, stating that he was going to get some fresh air. When he stepped outside, Aaliyah approached him and thanked him. Our boy just told her not to worry. There was no one around to listen to their conversation. Aaliyah smiled, saying his detection ability really made things easier. Takafuji then asked if she felt better, now that she'd started expressing her emotions. She got angry, saying that if anyone never showed emotions, it was him. But suddenly, there was a bloodbath on the ballroom floor. Everyone was in shock, and our boy realized that after this, Aaliyah would never be called the doll princess again. A scream echoed through the hall, and both of them turned toward it. Aaliyah was about to run, but he blocked her path and told her to stay put. There was a head flying through the air, and the king and queen were dead. What the hell happened here? A man shouted, ordering the corrupt to stay silent. He declared that the former rulers had been recklessly spending the kingdoms finances without any concern for the people. The king, who had done nothing to stop the queen, also deserved to die. That was why he, a man named Vitere who possessed royal blood, would now assume the throne. And the person called Aegiana would be the new queen. Man, it was the commander who'd been training our boy this whole time. Now things were getting complicated. The two of them stood there, shocked, while poor Amanda approached her mother's severed head. She started activating her power, calling them insane. She was already preparing a sphere of light, but girl, this was not a good idea. Obviously, Aegiana moved in an instant and slashed her. She didn't kill her, but damn. I actually felt bad for the girl, but at least she looked cool as soon as that useless piece of trash hit the floor. She writhed in pain, and the blow she'd just taken sent her rolling across the ground. The heroes were in shock, and Aegiana told Ryu not to move. If he attacked in any way, his death wouldn't be peaceful. That's when Vitere shouted, saying they were merely children and pawns of the witches. They had betrayed the witches' will by making the foolish decision to summon heroes. That was a grave sin, one that could only be forgiven through death. Man, while poor Amanda cried out for her sister, Aegiana cut her down. What the hell, girl? This commander was a real plot twist. Everything flipped. The one I hated I now liked. The one I liked I now hated. Aaliyah was about to do something, but the protagonist knew it was stupid. She was about to scream for her sister, but he immediately covered her mouth, telling her that getting caught would be the dumbest move possible. A rebellion was the last thing he'd expected. Then, Vitere ordered the citizens and soldiers to send these fools who stood against the witches to meet them. A noble tried to say something, but the man was slashed in the back before he could finish. The bastard even smiled at the sky, declaring that now he'd finally purified the entire royal family. Anyone who opposed the witches deserved death. Takafuji kept whispering for Aaliyah to calm down. Otherwise, she was going to die too. Either she did something reckless and died stupidly right there, or the two of them escaped now. The moment Amanda died, Ryu ran to her body. He shouted that this was insane. No one deserved to die over something so meaningless. But Vitere simply said that the heroes were still too young. Every noble who'd been there did not deserve the life they had. They didn't understand the true state of their country. Ryu screamed that even so, they didn't have to kill them. But Vitere only said that if he had seen the horrors of the city, he would understand. Then he ordered Aegiana to capture the heroes. She activated her aura, still beautiful as ever but more dangerous than ever, and told Ryu that it would be better if he didn't resist. But man, Ryu's not right in the head. He activated his limit break, blessing, and sent a slash of light toward her. But Aegiana barely moved. She casually extended her sword and blocked it with ease. She even complimented him, saying that both his power and judgment weren't bad. Once again, Ryu lunged forward, unleashing a storm of slashes. But from the way Aegiana calmly handled everything, it was clear the boy had zero chance. His attacks were ripping apart the hall while Aoi held up a barrier, blocking an onslaught of swords. Tamaki said they needed to get Ryu out of there and escape immediately. The problem was that they were completely surrounded by soldiers. This wouldn't be easy to resolve. Aegiana remained calm, while Ryu was already exhausted. She commented that since even Tamaki wasn't making a move, this victory would be easy. Ryu barely blocked another strike before she leaned in close and asked, "What are you going to do?" Even if he kept fighting, he couldn't win. It would be better if he surrendered so they could capture him. Otherwise, she would kill the second princess right now. Aaliyah lay there, collapsed, while our boy warned her directly. They needed to go now. If she stayed there, she was going to die. She heard that, right? She hesitated, but he pushed further, asking if she was really going to give up again after all this. Aaliyah realized what he meant. He was talking about her sister, about how she'd abandoned her back then. And that was when she decided she wasn't going to give up. She would survive so that one day she could get revenge. She wasn't going to let Aegiana decide how she would die. He smiled and said that if that was the case, he would help her escape. But from now on, he wasn't going to call her the second princess. He would just call her Aaliyah. At that exact moment, Ryu's sword shattered. He realized he didn't stand a chance, and Aegiana said, "This is the end." Man, she kicked him right in the gut with the sharp edge of her heel. That one hurt. The poor guy practically spat out his lunch from 3 days ago, and Tamaki immediately saw that this wasn't going to work. He was completely down on the ground, and she realized that the longer they stayed there, the more dangerous things became. She decided she had to save Ryu immediately, but in just 1 second, Aegiana obliterated Aoi's barrier with a single strike. Both girls were stunned, but the commander simply gave the order to capture everyone. Man, the soldiers came in and slammed the two of them onto the ground. They should at least be thankful they didn't get their heads cut off. Then she ordered them all to be taken to prison. And just to rub salt in the wound, Aegiana gave Ryu one last look and wondered whether she'd wasted too much time trying to train him. As Aaliyah watched the scene unfold, she thought that at the very least, she wouldn't be able to escape alone. But girl, she wasn't alone. She had our protagonist. Using his detection ability, he pinpointed the best corridor for them to take, allowing them to slip past without the guards noticing. As they ran, Alia was amazed by how far he could detect people's presence. He asked if she knew how to use magic. She answered that she only knew the basics. So he pointed to the end of the hallway and said that in 10 seconds, 3 soldiers would appear. She had to take care of them. She hesitated, asking if they couldn't just avoid them. But he explained that wasn't an option. She took a deep breath, nodded at him, and he continued counting down. 2 seconds. A sword appeared 1 second, and she fired a burst of air. 3 spheres formed around the soldiers' heads, cutting off their oxygen, and they collapsed unconscious. Takafuji was impressed. No wonder she was his teacher. Aaliyah explained that it was much easier to use magic when she had time to prepare like that. But then she noticed that he looked tired and asked if he was okay. Our boy simply replied that unfortunately, their enemies didn't care whether he was okay or not. Then he kept running, saying they had to take advantage of the weakened security. He managed to take out the soldiers, but he was sure he had 0 chance against Aegiana. The main goal of this escape was to avoid being seen by her. That woman was on a completely different level. They found an empty room, and he confirmed that at least no one was there. He searched for an escape route, then asked if she was okay with all this. He asked 'cause, man, there had been a massacre of all the maids in the palace. He was horrified that they'd gone as far as killing every single servant. Aaliyah walked to the corner and called out for Nala. Man, poor girl, she didn't deserve to die. She hugged her tightly, and our boy immediately remembered what she'd said before, that just seeing the princess smile was enough to make her happy. He fell silent for a second. Then, after a moment, Aaliyah gently laid Nala to rest and thanked him for waiting. He said it was perfect because he needed time to recover, but the real question now was, how were they going to escape? The 3 heroes were already behind bars, and Aegiana explained that she'd placed a seal on the prison that was impossible to break from the inside, so they'd better stay put. Tamaki told her to take off the handcuffs then, if it was so secure. She had a point. But then Ryu explained there was no way the Heroes Alliance would stay quiet if they were locked up like this. They were definitely going to be used as hostages, and the handcuffs were there so they couldn't take their own lives. Aegiana actually praised him, saying that for someone so hot-headed, he was surprisingly level-headed. But Ryu had his aura activated, and man, he was pissed. Even the girls were startled by the killing, intent radiating from him. The commander recognized that look. Thinking back to her days on the battlefield, She'd seen that expression before, the face of someone furious at their own weakness. Just like she'd been in the past, she kept staring at Ryu, filled with anger. Then she turned away and said he was too young. He wouldn't survive for long if he didn't let go of those emotions. If he'd stayed calm earlier, he could have at least saved Tamaki or Aoi. Now all three of them were locked up. With that, she left, while they just sat there looking like fools. Ryu clenched his fists in frustration, seething at the fact that the damn woman still acted like some wise mentor even in a situation like this. Walking up the stairs, Agiana was in disbelief that they still hadn't been found. Takafuji was escaping even better than she'd expected. Takafuji paused to think, but eventually said it was worth a try. He asked if the rest of the royal family knew about this. Of course, she said they did. It was an escape route for royalty. She wasn't even sure it was worth trying. But he said they didn't have any other choice, so that was that. Aliyah looked back and apologized to the poor girl who had just fallen asleep. Sadly, she was still too weak. All she could do was thank the maid for everything she'd done up to now. Poor thing. It really pulled at the heart. Meanwhile, the army kept moving through the castle, searching for the two of them. Takafuji wanted to make the most of this one chance they had. The only problem was that royal escape route. It wasn't hard to figure out that Aliyah would try to flee through there. Takafuji was feeling pretty down too. No real options, nothing he could do to get them out of this. Then he told her to wait, because they were walking right into an ambush. Not just a few soldiers, he meant there was no way through at all. To make matters worse, soldiers were coming from behind too, so going back the way they came was out of the question. Naturally, the poor girl was confused. Trapped, what were they supposed to do now? Was there no way to get through without being seen? All he said was that it was impossible. It looked like they'd already expected them to head for that secret door, and now the place was locked down tight. Aliyah knew there was nothing they could do. Takafuji was convinced that if they were caught, they wouldn't just be killed, they'd be tortured. Escaping wouldn't be easy at all. He wondered if maybe there was no way for the two of them to get out. Could this be the moment he finally gave up? But she shot back that she wasn't giving up. There was no way she was going to stand still and let herself be killed. She'd fight until the very end. Suddenly, her expression shifted, and Takafuji, wide-eyed and stunned, looked completely deflated. The rascal lit up, realizing her spirit still wasn't broken. It really seemed possible now. He said he'd used detection and found out there was an enemy army headed their way. She asked if it was a large force, and he said probably. He didn't know if these people were coming to rescue the royal family or what, but troops were coming in from another country. She asked when, and he replied probably by sundown. So in about 15 minutes, they just had to survive until then, and the whole place would descend into chaos. The only downside was that there was no avoiding a fight, and she simply nodded that she understood. Takafuji knew this situation was a coin toss, 50-50 at best. Whether they made it out alive or not would come down to pure luck. So he said they'd run toward the area with fewer soldiers and told her to watch their backs. That's when the enemy spotted them and started shouting that the princess had been found. Without hesitation, they launched a barrage of arrows, but the girl, out of nowhere, raised a magical barrier. She started yelling to him that they only needed to hold out for 15 minutes. She was going to survive this no matter what. She was completely focused, holding up that magic barrier, but even so, arrows were slicing past her arm, almost hitting her face. Takafuji told her to veer right, and wow, she barely made it. One of the arrows grazed her hair. The soldiers yelled to keep advancing and surround them. That's when Takafuji noticed they were moving faster than expected. He used his 3D vision and sensed a group closing in from the left. He warned her, and she quickly raised another barrier. The enemies hesitated and stopped for a second, but not for long. That shield only held for about 10 seconds. Takafuji was impressed they hadn't been sliced up yet. She was exhausted, poor thing, but they kept moving through the halls. The sun was starting to set, but unfortunately, they reached a dead-end room, blocked off and hopeless. She was losing faith, and Takafuji apologized. No matter which way he looked, there were soldiers everywhere. There was no way to escape. Right then, more soldiers arrived, shouted that they'd found them, and got ready to fire another volley. Aaliyah told them to hide, and the soldiers debated whether to charge or not. They ended up deciding to keep firing instead. The problem was that her magic was running out, and at this pace, she wouldn't be able to keep blocking for long. Another barrage came, and now her shields had shrunk, becoming smaller and weaker. She was barely holding it together. Explosions were going off in every direction, and the soldiers yelled to get ready for the next strike. But she kept pushing. No one expected her to be this relentless. She put up another shield and arrows kept flying. That's when she turned and called out for Takafuji while the soldiers cheered, thinking it was all about to be over. Then they realized, wait a minute, one of them was missing. Aaliyah was starting to wear out. The real problem? She hadn't even noticed. Where was Takafuji? She turned around, calling for him, but he didn't answer. And then it hit her. He'd used her as bait so he could escape. It looked like that whole story about reinforcements and escaping together was just a lie. Just something to keep her fighting. The soldiers were getting ready to fire again, while she stood there, completely lost about what was going on. But then, through the bars, she saw the sun setting and felt something in the air. Someone appeared, apologizing for making her wait. From now on, he said, he'd handle things. She was stunned, not understanding what was happening. The soldiers were confused too. There was some dark energy in the air, and they were calling for someone to turn on the lights. What was this? The beast within him was starting to show. He told Fenrir to take care of them. The fools didn't even notice the shadow behind them. And damn, what just happened? That was brutal. Biting into skulls, ripping through necks. The soldiers were panicking, screaming for help, and trying to figure out what was going on. But by then, they'd all become dinner. Just those creepy little horror movie hands scurrying off, with the whole hallway soaked in blood and swallowed by darkness. Alia had collapsed on the ground while the soldier tried to make sense of what was happening. They were calling out for the lieutenant while Takaji stood there with a smirk. The guy was still freaking out, and our boy calmly warned him, "No matter how much you scream, no one's coming, and no one's going to hear you." The guy jumped and spun around, asking where Takafuji Lenori had come from. But our guy just called out to Fenrir and asked if he was done yet. Right then, Fenrir appeared behind the soldier, saying only this one was left, but honestly, they were all too weak. The soldier lost it, slamming back against the wall, begging for help, and Takafuji just said, "I saw you kill plenty of people. Seems fair that you die as payment, don't you think?" Not very complicated logic, but fair enough. He just stood there, cool as ever. The guy stammered, "Are you Takafuji?" And all he got in response was, "Who knows?" Then the wolf sank its teeth in, taking down another one. Man, that hero of ours really held on, didn't she? She's lying in a pool of blood now, too. She calls out to him, saying she's using what little magic she has left to try to stop the bleeding. But wow, our guy is ice cold. He says it's a good idea, but goodbye. She's lost too much blood. There's no way she's making it out alive. Then she asks if he's had this power the whole time, and he just tells her not to look at it that way. Yes, he has this power, but he can only use it when the moon is out. That whole reinforcement story was obviously fake. He could have survived alone, but he said it just to give her a little hope. Looking at her now, he remembered those eyes full of vengeance and determination. Even in that state, she still hadn't given up, and if that was the case, maybe he wanted to see what she was capable of. Wait, what? Out of nowhere, he asks, "Are you a virgin?" She wants to know how he knows that. Okay, now I'm kind of scared about what he's offering. He tells her there's a way for her to survive, but she'd have to become his servant, his subordinate. By accepting death as a human, she could keep living as something beyond human. The choice was hers. I'm just concerned about the beginning of that offer. As weird as it sounds, she's lying in a pool of blood. She remembers Amanda and the maid and realizes she doesn't have a choice. Either she has to sell her soul to a demon or die. She wants to live. The devilish one says that's a great answer. He grabs her by the neck and says that, just as she said, he's much closer to being a demon than a god. Then he bites. Blood starts flowing through her body. He gently lays her down and tells the creatures nearby to keep watch. Their job now is to protect this woman until she wakes up. Meanwhile, back with the king, some soldiers arrive, reporting that the second princess is surrounded. He says he understands and tells them to proceed with the mission. A great nation is about to rise, and this is no time for hesitation. The king is eager to put an end to the hunger spreading through the country and rescue the abandoned orphans. Sounds a little too noble to be true. I seriously don't get it. Then he says he also feels guilty for having done nothing before, and I don't know what to make of him anymore. He knows it's been a long journey to get there. It was tough finding comrades who shared his ideals, but it was finally time to rebuild the nation. Except no, it wasn't. Takafuji had already launched an attack, and blood went flying. The soldiers froze in shock. And look who's back. Agiana, the fierce blonde, is here again. She knew something shady was going on. Yeah, the king's already been sliced up like a cartoon steak. Our guy holds up that basketball-sized thing in his hand and declares that with this, their plan has failed. There's no reason to keep fighting. So now what? More soldiers charge in, yelling that they're going to kill him. But right then he summons his blades, saying he actually prefers this option. Since everyone has gone this far, they might as well keep killing each other until no one's left standing. Boom, take that to the chest, fools. Our guy thanks them, saying that if they manage to hold out until the end, that'll make him even happier. Meanwhile, some girls are running through the castle, asking each other if they heard that, screams, people in agony. It was coming from the room where the king was, so they'd better hurry. When they arrive, who's there? Our guy, just standing there in full swag mode, hands in his pockets. He looks up and says he remembers them very clearly. These are Agiana's top knights, the Valkyrie squad. One of them calls out to Takafuji, wanting to know if he was the one who did all this. He looks back and asks if he said yes. Would she actually fight him seriously? Man, everybody's already seething with rage. One of the girls grits her teeth and charges in. But whoa, she takes a blade. What? I thought he was just going to dodge. Then her expression changes. Takafuji asks why she's showing her emotions so openly. Was it someone she cared about? Not sure what he did, but it looks like he hit her with an illusion, stabbed her, and finished her off in a mutual strike. The others are confused, and he's just standing there, untouchable. The girl calls out to Miranda and Alice, telling them to get ready. This guy is dangerous, and they have to be careful. Takafuji's a little impressed. He just killed one of their friends, and they're still composed. One of them, holding a weapon, says she'll aim for a vital spot. Takafuji uses analysis. He notices their weapons are magical, completely different from anything he's seen before. But suddenly, his foot is trapped in ice. One of them says she's got him, and the other says she'll handle the rest. An arrow almost hits him. Another attack from a magical tool. The speed at which these girls activate their gear is on a whole other level. It literally shreds part of the boy's face. Like for real. She blitzes past him in a flash. She even turns back to say she's going to win now. But the guy's smiling, even while getting slashed. Didn't remember him being this tough, but yeah, turns out he is. And that's exactly what they weren't ready for. He's still moving, but how? She starts to realize he's avoiding counterattacks so he doesn't get hit himself. But that's the worst decision he could have made. She charges in for another strike, but suddenly she's caught in threads. Actually, not even her. Her teammates all drop to the floor. At this point, It's starting to look like he's going to wipe them all out. Then he says he likes watching these coordinated attacks, but unfortunately, he's running short on time. So he'll give her a chance at a one-on-one duel. As a warm-up, he'll start by facing the squad's commander. Maria can't believe he plans to fight Adriana after this. Clearly, the guy's insane. He tells her he knows she's probably the most skilled one among them. Fighting without having to worry about anyone else would let her truly show what she's capable of. So why was she still stuck in a group like this? She grits her teeth and charges at him. He blocks while she screams at him to shut up. He doesn't have the right to speak like he knows her. Things are heating up. Takafuji shifts his hand to the side, pulls out a small blade, and deflects another strike. Meanwhile, she remembers when someone told her she had talent. Adriana introduces Maria to everyone, asking the girls to give her a chance. Maria looks so gloomy, completely expressionless. But the girls come over, asking questions and introducing themselves, and she starts blushing. Back in the present, she tells Takafuji not to insult her comrades. She'll never forgive that. He just smiles and says he likes her fighting spirit. He wants her to keep coming at him, while the lunatic celebrates, shouting for her to come at him with everything she's got. Suddenly he pauses, maybe unsure whether she's even paying attention. Turns out she completely ignores him and rushes over to help her friends up, saying she's not alone. She has the Valkyrie squad with her. Then, out of nowhere, she hears a scream behind her, and bam, she takes a bite to the shoulder. She starts calling out for Alice and Miranda, asking what's going on, and Takafuji simply tells her that unfortunately, her friends are no longer with them. They've already turned into ghouls, and now the real fight can begin. He says he kind of wanted this to last a bit longer, but sadly, it's time to end things. Then he waves goodbye and says the four of them can have fun together now. Man, the guy's brutal. He left Maria there to be eaten by her own friends. Man, I knew Takafuji was dark, but damn, he's getting even darker now. All that's left is the finishing touch to this whole story. Outside, soldiers are being devoured, and Adriana comes running in a hurry. That guy's standing there with a smirk, and she can tell something's off. In the throne room, there's blood everywhere, and she's getting a bad feeling. She glances to the side, and instinct hits hard. She freezes for a second and sees the severed head. She walks over and gently picks up the head. Unfortunately, when she gets a gut feeling that something happened, it usually turns out to be true. Meanwhile, under the moonlight, someone says, "Isn't the night beautiful?" In his world, there's a saying used for moments like this when making a confession. Adriana asks if it was Lenore, and he replies that the head is a gift for her. Our guy's about to unleash chaos, no doubt. She's standing there holding the king's head. Then she calls out to Lenore, asking if those wings of his don't belong to a demon. He just gives her a sideways glance like he couldn't care less. She tells him she knows those wings are the mark of someone who sold their soul for power. It's ridiculous, abandoning all pride just to go that far. He says he doesn't really understand what she means. Everything he did to survive. It's not that deep. She tells him that simply trying to survive isn't a good enough reason. What? She wants him to die? Cruel. She places a hand on her chest and says she fights for the nation. In this world, having a strong reason to live is necessary, but it has to be for family, not personal desires. Even revenge wouldn't justify it. And if she remembers correctly, she once told him he should never become a demon. Wait, did she just apologize? What? That's harsh. Wow, Takafuji, are you just going to take that? He puts a hand over his face, clearly displeased, and finally opens up, saying her brother was truly noble. Even after she betrayed everyone, she still treats him like some student. What a shame. Her plan has failed. Now he tells her it's time to wake up. There's no one left here to fight beside her. He calls out her name and tells her to look around. Wolves are crawling out of the walls, dragging soldiers' bodies. There's no one else left in this place. No more soldiers. No more Valkyrie squad. Everyone who came with her, and everyone she was counting on, is gone. The only one left from her squad is her. Sure, a few people were only neutralized, and their lives could still be spared. But of course, that would come at the cost of her sacrificing herself. Still, it's not so easy to understand. He brought all this chaos upon her, but now he's kind of disappointed. Maybe there won't be a good fight after all. He considers using mental interference to force her to fight, though honestly, she already seems pretty fired up. He acts bored, saying none of this is really exciting anymore, so he's going to be nice about it. Since he already killed the king, if she dies too, it's all settled. As for the other soldiers, he'll try to spare as many as he can. But Aegiana draws her sword. He asks her what she thinks she's doing, but she's dead serious, and slams her blade into the ground, activating her aura. And with that, she says this is a moment of silence for her comrades, those who were humiliated and killed, and also for those who were ready to die following her decision. Looks like she's about to go all in on Takafuji. Wasn't that what he wanted? Well, now he's going to get it. He stays calm and asks, in other words, if she's really willing to abandon all the knights. But she replies that she dedicated her whole life to training those knights, and now, with her own hands, she'll be the one to kill every single one of them under his control. Takafuji, caught off guard, says that if she does that, there won't be anyone left to govern the country. The whole place will collapse. She simply answers that there are still people, ordinary people, left. Even if all the nobles, soldiers, and the royal family are gone, they're just secondary details. As long as the people still exist, the nation can be rebuilt. And that's exactly why she'll keep fighting him. He suddenly pauses, then smiles. She's confused. Why does he look satisfied? That's when he apologizes for underestimating her. Bluffing now would just be wrong. He's going to respond with complete honesty. The corpses on the walls were just what remained of soldiers who failed to become vampires. There's no saving them anymore. The truth is, everyone she counted on is already dead. Right now, she's nothing more than food to them. Damn, now we're getting the full villain reveal. Aegiana calls out Takafuji Lenori's name and says he's far beyond redemption. That's when she draws her sword, and its glow is blinding. She shouts that he's her enemy. Takafuji feels something strange and starts backing away, and with a single slash, she tears through everything. He's stunned. She's way more dangerous than he thought. She has finally revealed her trump card. She's drawn the ancestral weapon. He never imagined that all of his ghouls could be wiped out in an instant. And that look in her eyes, that's exactly what he wanted. That's what he'd been hoping for. He spreads his arms and calls out to the commander, saying he's going to use everything he's got to face her. Right now, they're enemies. Aegiana stands there, staring him down, and her aura keeps surging. Again and again, you can feel it everywhere. But Takafuji warns her that several of her allies are still standing. He wants to see how long she'll last. And then he spots the Valkyrie squad. Aegiana glances to the side and remembers the girls. In her memory, she unleashes a single slash, tearing through everything. Wolves charge, but her sword slices through them like butter. She asks what the problem is. Is he just going to stand there and watch? If he's not going to make a move, then she'll go first. Takafuji's clearly shaken. Even his stealth attacks aren't working. And honestly, she seems way stronger than him. Close combat is not a good idea. He remembers a lesson where he once asked what Captain Aegiana's greatest strength was. She answered that she'd always been pretty strong, and when she became commander, the queen blessed her with an ancient weapon. It's the type of item that becomes far sharper and more precise when infused with magic. So yeah, that's why she's slicing through them like that. Not that they're her friends anymore, but still, those guys are getting shredded like paper. She's deflecting everything. Takafuji's attacks aren't doing a thing. That dark, enhanced human he trusted so much is being obliterated. Watching Aegiana's sword, he can't help but admire it. That thing really can cut through anything, and she doesn't even need magic circles. Suddenly she unleashes two massive hammer-like strikes from above, and now he's even more confused. She tears through his wing, then asks, "What now?" What's he going to do without any way to escape? He tries to steady himself by sticking a knife into the wall, knowing the last thing he can allow is for her to get close. He throws out a few more attacks, but she cuts through them like they're nothing. He keeps trying to stay pinned to the wall, desperate, but of course she easily gets closer. Somehow he flips through the air, managing to slip behind her, but damn, his arm gets sliced clean off. His hand goes flying. He lands behind her and says he thought he was doing pretty well. However, it seems there truly are no blind spots in her attacks. He's still bold. She says he's actually pretty agile and should become an acrobat. He apologizes, but unfortunately, that's not really his thing. At that moment, he notices the pure mithril sword in her hands. The item not only allows her to channel mana into the sword, but also to use magic without a magic circle. He then says that this mithril stuff is pretty effective against a demonic boy. Huh? She says that's exactly right. He probably heard it from the second princess. So if he's an intelligent boy, he should understand. He thanks her for paying so much attention to him. However, she keeps approaching. What she doesn't expect is a knife flying from his hand, but with another lightning-fast move, she blocks it. The poor boy is starting to get startled, and she then says he's full of amusing techniques. She wants to know what his next trick is. Damn, are you seeing this fight, bro? It's been a while since I've seen one this insane. He laughs, saying she noticed, but activates his binding ability anyway. Gianna easily cuts the threads. He notices that nothing he's doing is working. At that moment, she's about to advance again. However, she's hit by a barrage of attacks. Up on the wall is Fenrir, casting lightning. That sly dog, Takafuji, got outside her barrier's range. He'd actually placed Fenrir outside and ordered him to attack. She says his familiar really has a good strategy. It's just a shame that from so far away, it's easy for her to detect. He realizes the woman didn't even rely on magic. Her natural reaction time is just insane. She sends out another hammer-like attack, and Fenrir dodges. Our boy keeps scrambling, telling Fenrir to stay out of her reach and keep attacking, while throwing his own knives at the same time. But the thick blonde defends herself and says the sheer number of attacks is impressive. But how long can he keep up this pace? He's thinking of draining her energy, but she's conserving a lot, destroying everything he sends with ease. At this rate, they'll run out of knives and mana long before she does. He's trying to think of a plan, considering her barrier is covering the entire area. Her reactions are fast enough to handle any number of attacks, not to mention that Fenrir's accurate attacks aren't accurate at all. He starts to notice a certain contradiction. If her reaction time is so good, why is her barrier extremely close to her body? So he decides to get closer, thinking there must be a weak point there. The commander wonders if he's charging at her like a madman because he thinks she's too distracted by defense. His thinking is too simple. It's not as if she can't deal with it. And man, she immediately goes after him. She raises a barrier behind her, and damn, he gets his hand cut off. Our boy is going to be nothing but a stump soon. And then she says his end has come. All she has to do now is run this sword through his head, and it's over. He gets away from her, smiles, and tells her it won't be that easy. From beneath her, the wolf emerges and bites into her leg. His wolf came from beneath her shadow, and he says that since her detection is extremely close range, the only way in was through the shadows. At this moment, she doesn't know whether to deal with the thing on her foot or the man approaching her. Since the wolf seems much more defenseless, she decides to deal with Takafuji. The problem is that she then notices he still has one hand, and he smiles, saying that, unfortunately, she let her guard down. Now she's worried, wondering if her sword alone won't be enough. Takafuji keeps getting closer and is almost at her barrier. Suddenly, she thinks about hypnosis And Takafuji says she looked right into his eyes. A barrier appears in front of her. Her eyes turn yellow, but she instantly cuts through the illusion. He's shocked that even magic circles can be cut by that sword. He then activates another spell and creates some distance. But the wolf on her foot is cut down, and she demands to know what he did. He replies, "How should I know?" She tells him to just say why he's laughing like an idiot. Because he says, "She's funny too. Wasn't she enjoying it?" She replies, "How should I know? Damn, they're just trading barbs now." He tells her to look up. He sent some attacks up there, right? As always, she defended herself. Takafuji was eager for the grand finale. Eyes glowing, gauntlet glowing, circles appearing behind her. She sees another formation and wonders what he's planning to do. She wants to send out another slash, but at that moment he emerges from it himself. She's a little confused, and he thinks that, just as he predicted, her first reaction was to try to cut it. His plan was to stop her arm, so she couldn't finish her attack. However, he starts screaming at the same time she looks frightened. I think he went in for a big bite on little Blondie. Problem for her is that she can't fall for this hypnosis. But at the same time, her foot is injured. She knows that if she focuses on the barrier, she won't have enough time. So she goes for an all-or-nothing move. She uses air hammer magic to propel herself. And her arm moves a mile a minute. Obviously, Takafuji realizes what the damn woman did. But still, the thing goes through him like butter. Geez, the kid is in disbelief, calling her name. And what's this? A basketball spinning on the floor. Yeah, our boy's head. At the same time, at least Fenrir is coming from behind to get revenge. But obviously, she simply sends a slash in his direction, and the little wolf dissolves. Our boy is just there, agonizing. Meanwhile, exhausted, she laughs and says goodbye to Takafuji Linori. That crazy girl thinks everything's fine under the moonlight, holding our boy's head in her hands. It's been a long time since she had to go all out like this, but she can't afford to fall now. Just as she starts thinking about the second princess, bam, the hand holding his head gets sliced off. She's a little confused, and from the looks of it, he bit it off. Then she turns around and boom, she takes a kick from the headless body and crashes into the wall. The poor thing is exhausted, and when she opens her eyes, there he is, our guy, holding his own head. He fits it back into place like it's nothing, and says he's fine, even cracking his neck. She's left wondering how it's even possible that not even Mithril worked on him. Showing his arm, he says it's funny how everyone assumes Mithril would work just because it's supposed to kill demons. Even though that might be true in this world, unfortunately, he's not from here, so the rules are different for him. She's still trying to make sense of it, and he explains that he confirmed it back when she cut off his hand. Igiana realizes he deliberately pretended he couldn't regenerate it just to get her to lower her guard. Definitely a smart move. Takafuji's over there thinking that from the beginning, he'd suspected the brain wasn't all that important for vampires. During his fight with Fenrir, all his vertebrae had been shattered, and yet he'd kept moving like nothing had happened, which made no sense. The truth is, a vampire's heart is the real core. Everything else can be destroyed as long as the heart stays intact. Then he says it's only by luck that he's the one who came out on top. Sadly, he doesn't have much experience against someone as skilled as her. She replies that she understands, and he lets out a sigh, saying he had to give it everything he had. And once again, that crazy woman laughs. She figured that out too. He stares at her and remarks that, man, she's wrecked. Then he tells her he's going to take all her power. Turning her into a ghoul would be way too boring. And that's why he's saying goodbye. Damn, did he really kill her? You're insane, Takafuji. Sometime later, honestly, I'd even forgotten those guys were still around. He shows up and says Ryu really made a mess. The fool calls out to Linori, who says he brought the magic key to set them free. The girls rush over excitedly, saying they were so worried about him. He simply replies that he knows very well then activates hypnosis and tells them they should be more concerned about themselves first. Ryu shouts, asking what he's doing, and tells Lenori to stop, but our guy just tells him to chill. He doesn't intend to hurt him. Then bam, Ryu falls under hypnosis too, and our guy tells him to leave. But Ryu's confused, wondering why he can't move his body. Our guy realizes this bastard actually has enough willpower to resist it. Even so, he calls the two girls over and says he's got a little favor to ask. He wants them to clean up the mess he's been making. He explains that a lot has happened. Tamaki is supposed to take this staff, make sure to burn the whole place down, and make it look like he died too. The girl is so deep under hypnosis that she says it sounds amazing. But should she really do that? He tells her it'll be easy if she just stops subconsciously limiting her powers. Then he asks Aoi to put a barrier around them so they won't die in the fire. Next thing you know, the girl's screaming, saying she feels like it's really possible. She's going to set everything on fire. Ryu calls out to Tamaki, saying there are still people alive in there. She'll end up killing everyone. But she simply replies that it's fine. She's going to give it her all. He keeps yelling, but the sparks are already flying. And boom, fire everywhere. The entire mansion explodes, and from far away you can see the castle going up in flames. Even inside Aoi's barrier, which should offer complete protection, Takafuji can still feel the heat. That's what you'd expect from a hero, blessed with divine power. But in front of all those flames, someone is watching the castle crumble. It looks like she's remembering Amanda, who passed away, and the poor little maid who went with her. And let's not forget, she lost her parents too. Damn, poor thing lost everyone. On the other hand, at least she's still alive, living her new life with a new look. But hold on, remember how this whole story began? She shows up with that same expression, calling out to Takafuji. Could she be the one who brought him into this world? But how would that even be possible? No idea. He asks if everything's over, and she wants to know if he finished cleaning up. He looks surprised that she already knew what he was going to do. She answers that the moment he entered her body, the knowledge came with it. Wait, entered her body? Must have been with that bite, right? She just didn't expect her hair color to change too. Of course. He says it's better to have a new hair color than for her to have died. She says it's strange though. It feels like she's somehow bound by his thoughts and words. She's not sure how hard it'll be to hit him, and he thanks her. But apparently it isn't that hard. She smacks him to the ground. Even lying there, he says things might not be so bad after all. Besides, he thinks the new hair color suits her. Oh, now that she's one of Takafuji's too, right? All cheerful now. Then she says it's true. She didn't lose everything. She survived and gained a little freedom. The cost was just her entire family, her sister, and everything else. But she's okay with it because she's found something she wants to do. She's not sure if in this state as a servant she'll ever become stronger than him. But that's exactly what she wants, to earn back her true freedom. Takafuji's a little impressed and says it's a good idea. Poor thing, she doesn't even realize it, right? I mean, under a servant contract like that, she has no chance at all. He says that now that the little princess has made up her mind, they can head to the place he's been using as a base. She's confused as he starts walking away, but he tells her he'll explain everything later. It's better to get away from there first. She's already stunned and impressed because, what the hell? He's using that old Fenrir barrier that hides everything, and he even set up his little shack inside it. She wants to know how he built something so complex, and he says he simply used his forging skills. Even so, she complains that the place is kind of plain, right? Not to mention too small for two people. Poor Takafuji just tells her that, of course, it's going to be smaller than the castle she used to live in. There's no way to hide something that big anymore. And she'd better get used to living in a tiny house that doesn't even fit a bed. She sits down next to him and says she doesn't care. She never saw herself as royalty anyway. And besides, not having a bed is fine. She'll just sleep right there beside him. After all, she survived thanks to him and doesn't owe anything to anyone. He's a bit thrown off, and she says this is the only way she can repay him. Girl, what are you thinking? What are you trying to offer here? That's exactly what Takafuji's wondering. He says that from the looks of it, he won't even have to give her an order. And she replies that she's ready. He tells her to take it off, and boom, she's healed. My God, what's going on here? Dude, seriously. And she stands up, all fired up, asking if that was good enough. Takafuji activates his special vision, weapon forging vision. Oh, you sly dog, you gave her an outfit, didn't you? She's a little confused. He says it's weird seeing her in those rags. He clarifies that becoming a subordinate wasn't meant in that sense. And besides, he chooses who he spends his time with. For her to offer herself like that, she must be really confident. Damn, he just shut her down, rejected her, and embarrassed her. She's left standing there completely shaken. She thanks him anyway and runs off while he thinks she really is a little princess. Outside, the poor girl mutters that she messed up. Why did she try something like that? She just wanted to show that she was willing and motivated. In the end, she was the only one who survived, betrayed her country, and left everyone behind. Maybe all of this is some kind of punishment. Then, Takafuji suddenly asks if the punishment she thought she deserved was sleeping with him. She jumps in surprise, and he says it's amazing how rude she is. She's confused and tries to apologize again, saying he misunderstood and has no idea how grateful she truly is. He doesn't seem to fully believe her. Desperate, she begs him to believe that everything she's saying is true. Even though she's no longer human, she's survived, and she doesn't regret any of it. Then he says there's something he wants to try and asks if she wants to help. Excited, she says that if it's something she can do, absolutely. He explains that he got several skills back at the castle, but there's one he can't use alone. She's already pumped, saying that if that's the case, she can definitely help, until he says it's a sexual skill. And she's just like, wait, what do you mean? Right then, he pulls at her clothes and says, you said you'd help, so now you've got to be ready. Besides, it's just a little touching before bed. She tells him that kind of thing isn't healthy, but he just says she promised she'd do anything, so she has to accept it. Man, in the end, he made all that fuss and still went through with it. Damn, Takafuji, you scumbag. In the next chapter, while Aliyah soars through the sky, he's thinking about all the skills he gained. Swordsmanship, cooking, cleaning, doing laundry. Man, there was no shortage of new stuff. And he decides to level everything up to the max right away. Then he tells Little Miss Witch to come down, and man, he wonders whether it was him or her who got the genius skill. He's impressed that the girl has gotten seriously good at flying fast. He asks if she likes the clothes and wants any adjustments, and she says no. They're easy to move around in. Surprised, unlike him, she clearly knows how to use her powers without holding back, whether it's day or night. Then he hands her a sword and tells her to give it a try. As soon as she draws it, bam, the thing lights up with a red aura. She looks at it and says it's a beautiful blade. She wants to know if he used some kind of transformation. He explains that he tried reinforcing the sword Igiana used with dark magic. It turned into something like an absolute ancient blade of black power. But that name's too long, so he's just calling it Black Sword now. Ali is impressed that he has a weapon of that level now. He says it might sound amazing, but when he tried using it, nothing happened. Probably because he doesn't have the type of magic this world accepts. He wonders if it's going to be that way for everything and says that, yeah, unfortunately, it probably will. That's exactly why he's giving the sword to her, hoping she can master it. And let's be real, the sword's design after the transformation is seriously badass. She playfully threatens him, asking if he's sure he wants her to get that strong. He replies that she can try all she wants. He's got tons of ways to get stronger. Besides, a contest of strength shouldn't rely on weapons. Also, she needs to understand that because he can't use that weapon. He's able to learn things only someone from his world can. She says she knows it's because he doesn't follow the rules of this world that he can keep gaining all these new abilities. It's going to be interesting to see who ends up stronger. She says that part's already settled. He asks how, and she points at her fangs. That's when he realizes, damn, she inherited everything he had. But instead of focusing on that, she's busy hugging Fenrir, saying how adorable he is. He tries to explain that the thing is a savage beast, and Fenrir immediately hides. She's a little sad about that, saying she wanted to see more of the wolf, and he asks if she's the type who loves animals. She says not really, but she ended up taking care of all the ones her sister got tired of. Then Takafuji turns around and says it's time for them to leave, probably for the nearest nation, to gather some intel. A place where a hero hasn't been summoned would be the best choice, but she tells him there's no such place, man. There's not a single country in this world that hasn't summoned heroes. He's confused, and she explains that there's an alliance called the Alliance of 32 Heroes. Every country is required to summon a set number. He thinks that's overkill. Like, why so many heroes, seriously? That's a big problem for him. It means there are a bunch of people out there who might want to hunt him down. That includes that blonde guy from that one fight who disappeared, and the annoying Ryu and his buddies who vanished too. He knows they're bound to become a problem sooner or later. The next chapter kicks off with someone talking about beastmen, magens, elves, half-dragons, even humans. He asks that all of them be used as vessels for his return. An eye begins to form, then a hand takes shape. Yep, that's probably the demon king those 32 heroes were summoned to fight. Shock of the century, right? Lord Ignoya, the demon lord of this world, has been summoned. Meanwhile, look who's walking around the city all confident. The place is buzzing with activity when someone calls out to her. Some old man hands her some bread, saying it's to thank her for helping him the other day. She's a little confused, but the guy keeps handing her stuff. Everyone's calling her Airy. It seems that's the nickname she's been using to hide her real name. It's been a while since she and Takafuji arrived in the city of Regan, a place known for its block-style architecture and also considered a holy nation. So yeah, the church there is super powerful. Good news is that the city has an adventurers guild, which is perfect for them to earn some money. Lenori is going by the name Kiri, and she's the one who always has to go out and get food and everything else. Meanwhile, the guy just wants to sleep. But when she says she's back, bam, he gets launched out of the house with a bloody nose and smacks right into the wall. It doesn't seem too serious though, since he's down there crying for help. You can already feel the pressure. This intense woman says it's impressive he didn't lose consciousness after that hit. It doesn't make any sense for someone who goes around flirting with women to have that kind of toughness. She clearly likes him, and her name, Fanatique Lesejos. Hold up, no way, that's her real name. My God, it really is her name. She says she's going to rehabilitate the boy. She grabs his face while Takafuji tries to figure out what this woman just said. Aaliyah, on the other hand, is just watching in total confusion, not understanding what's going on. But yeah, it looks like she didn't like that interaction one bit. And that's how her new life began in this country. Now, from Takafuji's perspective, dude's been hitting up taverns non-stop since joining the guild. Like, what's going on? Did he kill everyone and now he's just chilling? I mean, fine, I'll give him a pass to unwind a bit. The bartender asks him to pay up, but he just tells her to put it on his tab. If he runs out of money, he'll just dip into Aaliyah's cash. And while our guy's turning into a full-on drunk, Aaliyah's out there grinding quest after quest, earning the title Black Rose. The adventurers gave her that name after seeing her take down hordes of monsters, twirling in her little dress, while Takafuji just soaks it all in and enjoys life as she rakes in the gold. No one at the guild can figure out why the Black Rose hangs around a dude like him. Then some guy asks why he doesn't try earning money himself, saying lounging around while a woman pays his way isn't exactly masculine. Takafuji just tells him to mind his own business, and he notices that this same guy who used to drink alone in the corner is now trying to sit next to him. As he drinks to build poison resistance, he's also slowly figuring out how the city works. The only downside is that he's drinking so much, people are starting to avoid him. Suddenly the doorbell rings, and in comes that wild fanatique Lasijos with a weird name. Takafuji wonders what a cleric is doing in a place like this, and, of course, he immediately invites her to have a little drink with him. But she says drinking that much isn't good for the body or the soul, everything in moderation. It's better that way. He, however, starts staring at the mark on her forehead, saying he can't quite see it clearly and asking her to come closer. Dude, I don't know what happened there. Did she lean in? Or did he try to pull her? I think he went to grab her, and she dodged, saying he can't just touch something like that. And that's when Aliyah walks in, and everyone in the bar sees him getting slammed to the floor, all bloodied. She sees the crazy woman grabbing his face, amazed he hasn't completely passed out. The guys in the bar are cracking up, saying the drunk totally deserved it for lazing around all day. Finally, someone was going to knock some sense into that guy. Fanatique says that's exactly what she plans to do. Her god doesn't forgive anyone. Then she declares that, in the name of her god, she's taking the boy with her. But then she notices the black rose staring her down and asks if she needs anything. Poor Aliyah, totally embarrassed, just says no. Like, wait, she's not gonna save our boy? Oh no. Turns out she does want to know what that woman plans to do with the guy. Oh, don't be like that. She says the dude hit on her, but honestly, it's impressive how tough he is. Good thing she rescued him then, so yeah, bye-bye. Everyone's a bit confused, staring at Aliyah and waiting to see what she's going to do. Some even tell her she's finally gotten rid of that boy. But right then, she drops the bag, tells everyone to hold it. Her face goes completely red, and she takes off running after the guy, leaving everyone wondering why she's into weirdos like him. Cut to another part of town, and Fanatique slams the poor guy onto a bench and brings that big old hand right to his face. She's trying to use some holy magic on him, says she's going to go easy. This one has zero respect for our guy, seriously. But the big old hand was just for a healing spell. Takafuji's all messed up, and she asks if he's feeling better, telling him to stop drinking so much already. He asks who she is, and of course, here comes the weirdo introduction. Fanatique, the Templar, or just Fauna if he wants. But the most important thing is that they go say a little prayer now. Meanwhile, Aliyah's trailing behind them, dying of jealousy, mad that they're holding hands. Like, what is going on here? Is that kind of stuff normal in this world, or what? Then someone says that woman is dangerous. It's Fenrir, right there beside her. He says he's not sure if his master noticed, but he picked up a strong scent of divine protection coming from her. Aliyah looks confused, and Fenrir gives her a little wink. He's sure she noticed too. That's why she needs to keep following the boy. Inside the church, Fauna tells Takafuji to enjoy the moment. He's lucky to be in a place as incredible as this. Then she asks his name, and he says it's Kiri while staring at the statues, asking what they are. She tells him that's the main goddess. He doesn't need to worry, just copy what she does while praying. Bring the 5 fingers together to represent the main goddess, then close the other 4, shut your eyes, and pray. So now he's just playing along, not sure how he even ended up there, but hey, might as well have some fun while he's at it. He starts thinking about how he's never actually prayed before in his entire life. But while he's praying, someone or something seems to notice his presence. Fauna looks a little startled. He starts feeling like something's watching him, like he's suddenly connected to something. He wonders if it's Fauna's doing, but some other instinct tells him it's not her. And whatever this is, it doesn't feel like normal magic or any physical phenomenon. It's like something is literally watching his soul, and he's not happy about it. He demands to know who the hell is messing with him like that. Then he says he doesn't know who it is, but they'd better get the hell out of his head. And just like that, the connection seems to vanish. Fauna says she noticed he was praying with more passion than she expected. He must have realized how beautiful it is. Now that his heart's been purified, it's time to move on to the next step. Takafuji, though, is just staring at that smiling statue, curious about this mysterious power now. He knows he'll need to come back and figure out what really happened in that place. Somewhere else, two women are talking. The one with white hair says the connection was broken, while the one with blue hair agrees she never imagined a human could pull that off. And somewhere in the shadows, the garden host squad now knows exactly who Takafuji is, or rather who Kiri really is. The bell rings, and our boy Takafuji is back at the bar. That bearded guy is still there alone, right? I don't know if I'm crazy, but that dude kind of looks like the Demon King. It just hit me now, 10 out of, and he says our boy's looking good. Dang, when did Takafuji get beaten up that badly? Oh right, that was Fanatique, who totally wrecked him in broad daylight when he was all weak. Just wait until nighttime, woman. Let's see what he does to you. He's just thinking to himself that this lunatic who calls herself a Templar suddenly started attacking him out of nowhere, and the problem is her hits hurt. A lot. Not just because she's strong, but because he's a vampire and she's using light-based attacks. Then she says she noticed back at the tavern that he has an exceptionally sharp eye. Too bad his body can't keep up with it. Once again, he's surprised by how sharp she is. But she couldn't care less and keeps hitting him, saying he'll get used to it eventually. While he's begging for a break, Ali is off to the side watching it all, saying the poor guy is really suffering. Maybe they should help him. If this keeps up, there won't be anything left of him. But Fenrir reminds her that Takafuji asked them not to interfere unless it was a real emergency. Besides, he's pretty sure the guy can escape anytime he wants, so maybe he has some other goal they don't understand. And finally, his goal is reached. Time to run. Back at the bar, the bearded guy says he gets it now. He's impressed that the kid actually managed to escape that maniac. But Templars in this world? Yeah, they kill in the name of offering things to the main goddess. They've got all kinds of powerful tools, and the biggest problem with dealing with them is the strategies they use. That's why he tells Takafuji not to get too involved and to forget about becoming a Templar himself. It wouldn't suit him. Takafuji replies that, yeah, he definitely felt that wasn't his thing. But what he wants to know is how this guy is so sure he can't use magical tools. Right in the middle of that chat, boom. Fanatique shows up again. Girl doesn't rest. She tells him he runs well, but it's time to get back to training. Seriously, though, dude went right back to the place where he got captured the first time. Genius move. The bearded guy wonders if the two of them are actually close friends. Like, he knew our boy was a bit of a perv, but he didn't think he'd go as far as letting himself get beaten up just to have her around. Takafuji was trying to come up with a strategy to deal with that kind of magic, but at this rate, he was going to die before figuring it out. That's why, knowing the only thing that worked, he played his card. He suggested they go back to the church for a little prayer session, and of course she was thrilled. She's all giddy, saying she can't believe he wants to come pray to the goddess. Truly, his heart must be changing, but really, the guy's just trying to escape her torturous training and dig deeper into that strange phenomenon from before. When he gets back to that spot, he immediately notices that the sensation of being watched is gone. He wonders now if the master and the other worshippers are actually connected to someone else. And wait, why is he calling that girl master now? What he does notice, though, is that since his detection skill can't sense who it is, it's probably some power from another world. Maybe, like his own abilities, it didn't originate from this place. He decides to use analysis on everything around him. It's not the statue, not the people, not the clothes. Then suddenly, he detects a strange substance. His eyes light up as he says he's found what he was looking for. The strange sacred stone seems to be the thing connecting to the so-called goddess. That was the source of the sensation that made him feel like he was linked to something. But he clearly remembers that blonde goddess, and this definitely doesn't seem like her. Maybe he just picked a fight with the real gods of this world. He decides that's enough information for now. Just then, Fanatique turns bright red, startled. There's someone else there. Apparently, it's this guy named Lord Raven, the capital's hero and captain of the Holy Knights. Years ago, he defended the whole city from a monster horde, and now people treat him like a living legend. Takafuji just thinks he's her superior and doesn't find him all that impressive. Meanwhile, she waves goodbye, saying she'll catch up with him at the tavern later. Dude just got abandoned. Our guy figures this dude can't be that much stronger than Igiana and tries to run an analysis on him. But the moment he does, the guy suddenly whips around, and Takafuji has to dive for cover. He's not sure if the guy noticed the analysis, but he definitely felt something. And yeah, this could get risky. His girls start asking if he's okay, and he just says something about a weird smell. Wait, was it the scent of his own kind? Could that guy be another summoned hero? Yeah, it would make sense. A little while later, stuff's getting wrecked, and Aaliyah's just sitting there, bored out of her mind, watching the two of them fight. Looks like Takafuji's been training with Fanatique all day, and they're barely even talking. That's what's making her so bored. Fanatique is trying to land some of her holy hammer strikes, saying he's finally learning how to dodge. He thanks her, kind of unsure if that's the right thing to say. Since that fight with Igiana, he's learned how dangerous magical tools can be, but Fanatique wants to know if he's just going to stay on defense forever. He's thinking about it, remembering those black knives of his, but the problem is that they rely on dark magic, so he just tells her to forget it. Suddenly, she smiles and comes in with another hammer strike, saying it's settled. Tomorrow he's going weapon hunting. An adventurer can't be walking around unarmed. Besides, she's busy all day tomorrow with Lord Haven, so training's canceled. He's a bit confused. Does this girl actually like Lord Haven? Later that evening, he goes to talk to Aaliyah, who's sitting there looking all downcast. He asks if she's figured out how to take him down yet. She's been watching all the training, but she just replies with a distracted no. He comments that it's strange. She and Fenrir have been watching him all day, yet they haven't come up with anything. She doesn't really respond, just kind of drifts in that mellow mood. Then she asks if he needs something. He simply asks if she's free tomorrow. The master. Yeah, I know he's calling her that because he wants to learn how to use positive magic even though he's a creature of darkness, but still, not a fan of it. She told him to go find a weapon. So he was thinking of asking Aaliyah to come with him. He doesn't know the shops in the city, and she obviously does. Of course, she lights up immediately, saying she's totally free. She's got some quests, sure, but that's nothing to worry about. Honestly, Takafuji wouldn't be able to do anything without her. She grabs his hand and says it's time to go, while he's just thinking about how excited she seems. For some reason, I'm starting to like this little troublemaker. It's rare to actually like the FMCs, the female main characters. They walk through the city, chatting about food, but Takafuji says he wants to focus on weapons. She's clearly flustered, kind of awkward, because really, she just wants to enjoy spending time with him. Then she tells him to hurry up. She's taking him to a shop. When they step inside, there are a bunch of mediocre weapons on display. But sneaky Takafuji, as always, uses Analyze to check their real quality. Turns out there are actually a few good pieces hidden in there. A lot of the weapons are decent, but the issue is that they're all magic-based, and he doesn't have this world's mana. Then she points out this massive skull-themed scythe, saying it's super cute and not even a magical weapon, but he turns it down. Our guy's starting to act all swaggy with her, huh? She's thinking the same thing. Like, yeah, it does suit him. He tells her she should take the opportunity to buy something too. Her katana draws more attention than it should. She figures he's right. Something more compact and low-key would be better. In her case, all it takes is a glance to the side, and she's already found what she wants. But before she can grab it, Takafuji reaches out and says he'll check it first. It's a mithril dagger, exactly the kind of item he hates the most. As usual, it functions as a magic conduit, so yeah, perfect for her. She starts worrying about the price, but he tells her not to stress. Of course he goes out hunting at night. That's why he spends the whole day drinking at the bar, right? Did everyone forget he's a vampire? She's a bit hesitant about the money, but he tells her not to worry. He only spends on booze, so he'll cover it. She's all flustered, head tilted like always. The shopkeeper thanks them for the purchase, and Takafuji says it's a shame. In the end, he didn't find anything for himself, but she wants to know if he even realizes what that dagger means. He's confused. What are you talking about, weirdo? Meanwhile, she's completely red, head over heels. The girl's gone. So they go back to wandering through the shops, checking out stores all over the city, but still can't find anything good, until suddenly they come across the most suspicious-looking place ever, a cave with a straight-faced butler standing out front. The old guy welcomes them in, and our two goofballs stand there, totally lost. The butler explains that they only make custom weapons there. Whatever they want, they just have to say it, and the weapon will be crafted to match their tastes perfectly. Takafuji asks if they can make something that isn't a magic weapon. The butler says that's no issue at all. They'll give it their all to meet his expectations perfectly. And of course, the sneaky boy uses his little analyze ability. And yep, he picks up that the stuff here is high tier. So now he's interested in placing an order. The butler says he's looking forward to it and invites him inside to see all the materials and options available. Takafuji asks if the girl can come in too, and the guy says that's no problem at all. The guy walks into someone else's place and starts telling them to clean better, complaining about all the cobwebs around. The old man calmly explains that the place is like an old person's house, but Takafuji keeps grumbling while the butler just tells him to get inside already. A while later, they're outside again. He mentions that it's taking longer than he expected, but Alia says they actually decided pretty quickly. They didn't even have to go to tons of shops. Then she suddenly says the tea is delicious. He just comments that it tastes similar to the tea from the castle. Maybe it's because the atmosphere here is a bit better, or maybe because she wanted to sit there drinking tea with him. Yeah, I know exactly what kind of tea she wants. Some time passes, and she asks why he made his decision so quickly. He reveals that he used Analyze on the guy and saw that everything there was top-tier quality. Plus, the butler out front convinced him. He could tell someone powerful was behind that place. The only thing that threw him off was that the place was clearly filthy, so the guy obviously wasn't a very good businessman. And oh God, look who shows up again. Fanatique, for the love of God, get out of here, woman. She comes barging in to bother our boy, just as he was enjoying his peaceful tea. He asks what his dear master is doing there. Didn't she have a date? She replies that she's already made it back, but now she wants to know if he's been out here flirting with girls. Aaliyah immediately yells out, saying no, she and Kiri are just companions. Then a masked man tells Fanatique to stop jumping around, and she apologizes, saying she's messing up and really needs to be a model of her god at all times. The guy introduces himself as Mask. He says he's one of the people assigned to keep an eye on Fanatique. Takafuji finds it odd and wants to know why she's being monitored. She explains that the church people are kind of rigid. They're starting to question her relationship with Kiri. Mask adds that all women in the church are expected to remain virgins, so Takafuji is considered a threat. He finds it strange that a guy like him, who's already got a beautiful adventurer like the Black Rose, is now apparently chasing after Fanatique too. Rumors about the two of them are spreading all over the city. Takafuji just says, people seem to be saying whatever they want, but then Mask goes on to say that he's also interested in the person allied with the Black Rose. He pulls out a letter and reveals he's the #1 fan in her fan club. And now the guy wants our boy to teach him how to attract women like that. My God. He slams his forehead on the table and declares that from now on, Takafuji is his master. Sometime later, the guy is still clinging to him, pestering him for dating tips, while the two girls chat off to the side. But then Fanatique asks if it's really true that the famous Black Rose is allied with that drunk. Aliyah answers yes. Then Fanatique glances to the side, notices the mithril dagger, and asks what that's about. All curious like, "Girl, mind your own business, please." That's probably what Aliyah wants to say. But Fanatique seems a little confused. Apparently, in this world, giving someone a mithril dagger is considered a marriage proposal. What the hell? How does that even work? Fanatique, annoying as ever, totally figures it out and says that if Kiri knew what that meant when he gave it to her, that would be hilarious. But she's pretty sure that wasn't the case. She then says their conversation is over and that she'll talk to Aliyah more later. And there she is, Aliyah, sitting there with that fake little smile, saying, "Sure, say no more." That whole conversation was just a pain. I already didn't like Fanatique bothering my waifu, and now we're jumping her in the alley, no hesitation. Takafuji's completely wiped out after a day like this. Meanwhile, Mask is deep in thought about Kiri. He's usually good at reading people, but this one? He still can't figure out what kind of person Kiri actually is. Later, Fanatique waves goodbye to our boy, saying she had a great day and they'll see each other again. He just mutters that she seems way too excited. He heads home, ready to finally get some rest. But of course, the night is just getting started for him. Vampire life. Then suddenly, something feels off. He stands frozen in front of the door, and a strange voice suddenly asks how he noticed, saying he seems to have good intuition. The voice goes straight into his head, which is seriously creepy. Even so, he walks inside and comes face to face with a mysterious woman who greets him with a "nice to meet you," introducing herself as Fulius. Takafuji doesn't look very impressed. He just asks if she was the voice in his head. She comments on how odd it is that he could sense her presence, but doesn't know about spiritual magic. "Girl, you're walking around dressed like that. Whoa, ma'am, take care of yourself. What is that outfit? Yo, YouTube, don't take us down." She says she'd been hearing a lot about him and wanted to see what kind of trash he was. But if he wants, she's willing to teach him spiritual magic. Make it make sense. Then she grabs his hand, tells him to come closer, and pulls him in. What the? Warriors, slow down. I want to be Takafuji, not watch him get dragged like that. The girl straight up says he got pulled into bed by a stranger and didn't even resist. His only reply, "You're hot." Also, he's got a rule. When a feast presents itself, he devours it. Okay then. Suddenly, she activates interference magic. Thought we were going in that direction for a second, but nope, she had other plans. He thought that with them being so close, her hypnosis wouldn't fail. But she looks at him, gives him a little heart, and says, "Unfortunately, not tonight." Even so, she plants a kiss on him and boom, he's out cold, tossed into some other realm. Not quite the rhythm we were expecting. When he wakes up confused, he asks where they are. She explains that they're in her mental world, basically a dimension that exists inside each person, and she just keeps growing in power. A vine starts sprouting from the ground, and she says that in this space she controls everything. He can't do a thing. For example, she can strip him of his armor, let's say, leaving him spiritually exposed. She then says, "Well, it gets complicated here." Basically, she's going to drive him mad, but like in a clean way. She wants to make his soul dependent on her. And yeah, she's going in for the full takeover. Takafuji's trying to resist, but it doesn't look easy. She points out that she noticed he's a virgin and wants to know why he has so many attendants, but never does anything. Maybe he's just afraid of intimacy. And yeah, he starts radiating dark energy and tells her to shut her mouth, saying fear has nothing to do with it. Suddenly, a magic circle appears behind her, and the world she thought she had full control over, bam, starts falling apart. The plants begin rotting, and a hand reaches for her face. Takafuji goes full demon mode and tells her to shut it again. All that just to avoid being devoured. Okay. The bastard even questions this so-called absolute control of hers. How convenient, because when it comes to domination, he considers himself quite skilled too. Meanwhile, Aaliyah walks up to the door and walks right in, telling him to stop leaving things wide open, when suddenly, yep, she walks in on that scene. The girl's crying black sludge, and Takafuji just turns his head like, "Oh hey Aaliyah, you're back. I thought our waifu was going to give up, but nope." She pulls out the mithril dagger. God help us. Meanwhile, the other girl, now properly dressed, drops to the floor like a weirdo. And what the? Is that it? Something in his mouth? Nope. He spits it out. That's what that was. Ah, okay, so she must have been using that full-sized body, but her real form is this tiny one. She was using charm magic to seduce humans and extract information. Ah, crap, I would have spilled everything too. Her name's Sylphie, and she's a high-level wind spirit, though she'd been dominated by Lenori. She's explaining all this to Aaliyah, who's now smiling like crazy, thinking she's adorable. Takafuji asks if this supreme god is the same one who tried to reach him back at the church. Even without her answering, he's already sure of it. Looks like things are moving faster than he expected if someone's already trying to seduce him like this, but he immediately demands that she tell him everything she knows. Otherwise, obviously, her ending won't be pleasant. The poor thing is trembling, totally shaken, until she suddenly regains her composure and says she's a high-level spirit and won't spill everything just like that. He says he's impressed, so she really plans to talk back to him. Fine, he has other ways. He flicks her in the stomach. Actually, not the stomach, because hearts literally fly out. Dear God, Takafuji's going to get arrested, and the girl's turning red, demanding to know what the hell that was. Yep, that's right, girl. Cover yourself while there are literal hearts floating in the air. Then he casually tosses her to the side. Jesus, let me just say this. Classic anime madness. Anyway, sometime later, it looks like she ended up guiding them to the nearby forest to get some information. Turns out she needs to be physically present in certain places to use her abilities. What's odd is that her hair turned black, probably because of the domination he used on her. Takafuji finds that fascinating. He never thought his ability, which normally only works on living things, would affect a spirit. It didn't seem as strong as what it did to Aaliyah, but she was still kind of under his control. He asks where spirits usually reside, and she says basically anywhere. She doesn't know of any place where they don't exist. That's terrible news for Takafuji. He can't sense spirits, which means they could be watching him any time, and he'd never know. So he asks if she can see them. She says she's not sure, but she'll try. With a little wink, boom, they're all revealed. Aaliyah compliments her, saying she's amazing, and she just replies that she already knows. Even if she can't use high-tier magic, she's got a bunch of other skills. For example, she can go completely undetectable if she wants. Takafuji just watches, thinking this could actually be useful. Then Sylphie says that after being dominated, she noticed something new. Instead of regular wind magic, she can now use this strange black wind. Looks more like smoke than wind, and Takafuji immediately recognizes it. He gets an idea right away and says this might be seriously useful. The scene shifts to a wrecked part of the forest. With everyone stunned that, the monster has been torn clean in half. It's not clear whether Sylphie or Takafuji did it, but it looks like he's managing to use a mixture of her wind and his dark magic. The poor spirit is shocked. She never imagined her power could be used like that. If a creature hadn't been from the demon realm, it would have been completely obliterated. He asks what this demon realm business is. She's like, well, imagine a place full of creatures from the demon world. Very detailed explanation, thanks. What she doesn't understand is why that thing showed up here. This kind of monster shouldn't exist in a forest like this. The king of the night hunt, aka Takafuji, agrees it doesn't belong here. Aaliyah asks if Sylphie's ever been to the demon realm, and she says no, but she can tell the spirits in the forest are scared. Aaliyah adds that, yeah, It's strange for creatures like that to come here on their own, which makes Takafuji wonder, why did that monster show up in this place? And look who it is. Yeah, that guy. The one we were suspicious of. The Demon King had a red beard, and so does this guy. Turns out there wasn't just one, but two of them. Sometime later, Takafuji's sword is finally ready. And damn, it looks so basic. Aaliyah is excited, saying it looks easy to use. He agrees it's high quality, almost like his arm naturally extends all the way to the blade's tip. She mentions she heard the craftsman is moving out. That's a shame, considering how good his items are. The builder confirms it. Kiri will be the last person he serves in this city, but he's glad he likes the sword. Maybe they'll meet again somewhere else, but not here. Until next time, he says. Yeah, that old man definitely knows something. Outside, Aaliyah's celebrating that they didn't have to pay out of pocket because it wasn't cheap. But Takafuji just used Fanatic's money, thankfully. Aaliyah asks if he at least thanked her. He says, not a chance. She's the one who made him buy the weapon. Let her pay for it. And speak of the devil, look who's over there praying. Unbelievable. Now it's Takafuji walking up to her. He glances over, and it looks like she's checking out his new sword. He says it's definitely high quality and very practical. But he points out that, as she probably noticed, it's not a magical weapon. His body doesn't respond well to that kind of thing. That's why she has to understand that no matter what she teaches him, he's not going to get stronger. The weirdo smiles and asks if he's already tired of training with her. Of course he is. He just says he never liked it in the first place. And honestly, it doesn't make sense to keep doing this. It's just a waste of time. These training sessions are over, and she's just wasting her time too. I thought she'd be upset, but nope. She just laughs and says it's true. Even if he spent his entire life training, he'd still stay at the same level. That's why she'll stay by his side until he does get stronger. Because believing in people is her specialty. What the hell, girl? You just got turned down. Get away from our boy. He already has FBI spirit girl and the clingy one. He mutters that she's just an annoying woman who won't leave him alone. But since that's the case, maybe it wouldn't hurt for him to put in a little more effort too. The next chapter starts in a bar where some guy is staring at a blonde woman, saying she has peculiar interests and very moisturized lips. Then he comments on another one, saying her body is extremely well trained and there's no way she's still pure. Takafuji is nearby drinking and instantly spits it out, saying the guy really does have a good eye. Mask answers that it's a skill he developed from spending so much time in the church. Since purity is revered there, he ended up getting pretty good at spotting it, and now our boy Takafuji is hanging around with this guy. Strangely enough, the guy is actually really good at conversation. So good, in fact, that Takafuji almost lets a few secrets slip here and there. He's starting to wonder if there's a deeper reason behind it all. But hey, the guy's paying for dinner, so whatever. That's when Mask asks about the next one, and look who's walking in. Mask immediately comments that her hip movement is devastating, like it radiates both dignity and despair at the same time. She manages to seem pure, but with a vibe that, yeah, we're not even going to repeat what he said. Just seeing her on the scoreboard is enough to guess. Takafuji bonks him with 2 branches on the head. Seriously, stop dragging women into the middle of the bar. Y'all are trying to get banned. The idiots apologize, and the girl walks out. Takafuji then asks why Mask is always around him instead of watching over Fanatic. Mask explains that the only reason he's even keeping tabs on her is because Takafuji is around. On top of that, there's some kind of exam coming up. This city is where the other priestesses come to take their trials. And from the looks of it, Fanatic's about to either beat the brakes off everyone or get wrecked herself. These exams don't play around. Of course, the church is confused about Takafuji's presence since Fanatic, who normally takes things seriously, has been spending all her time with him lately. Takafuji asks if she's strong. Mask says she's reaching the final levels of training and doing her best. And the door opens again. Speak of the devil. The demon king himself, the king of booze. Takafuji casually greets the old guy and says he needs a favor. The bearded man says he can clean up his own messes. They get into that half-distracted, barbed banter. But it's clear the old man already knows Takafuji isn't normal, while our guy is still completely clueless. Suddenly, Mask says he's leaving. Apparently, he doesn't get along with this man. Takafuji just asks him to pass along an apology to Fanatique. Before leaving, the bearded man tells Takafuji to be more careful about the people he associates with. But Takafuji shoots back that he's not taking advice from someone everyone ignores except him. He waves goodbye to Mask. But then Sylphie, speaking from within his shadow, asks how he can even stand being near that guy. Even from where she's hiding, she feels a strong instinctive aversion. She's certain this man is fully aware of the existence of spirits. The old man speaks up, saying Takafuji's new companion must be a high-level spirit. Takafuji realizes this guy isn't hiding anything. The old man just says the timing is perfect. Now he knows Takafuji can see souls and use spiritual abilities. Aaliyah looks confused, and Takafuji activates his special vision. What he sees: name Igno, race, demon, dragon, beast, chimera, homunculus, divine protection, reincarnated, divine punishment. Too much information to process, but one line says it all: current demon lord. That's the part that really matters. Takafuji is stunned, completely frozen. Then he starts sweating bullets. Aaliyah seems to notice something's off too. And just like that, the demon lord asks if they should step outside. He says there aren't too many people around. Might be better for him, and for Takafuji Lanori. Wait, he just said his full name. He's not supposed to know that. Aaliyah realizes it instantly. Takafuji stands up and says, sure, that's fine. Aaliyah says she'll go with him, but he gives her a direct order to stay put. Because of the pact, she's locked in place, unable to move. Out in the forest, the demon lord tells him to relax and asks if the location works. But Takafuji doesn't say a word. Silence, staring. The demon lord admits it's hard to ask someone not to be on edge in a situation like this. Suddenly, he expands his aura. And just like that, the spirit hiding in Takafuji's shadow starts breaking apart. He says he doesn't want any spirits eavesdropping on their conversation. Poor Sylphie. She collapses on the spot. The demon lord apologizes, but says that unfortunately, it's just the two of them now. Then he says, Pyoko. He's got a mix of elf ears, droopy demon horns, and even some dog ears. Dude's got everything going on. And he asks Takafuji what comes to mind when looking at him. Naturally, right? We're all thinking the same thing. This guy's a total mess. Just a swirl of everything with a beard slapped on top. The demon lord admits it. He knows his appearance is revolting. He even has a tail. He belongs to the chimera homunculus race. Originally, he was just a regular demon like any other. But he gained this body in his second reincarnation. He figures Takafuji must have come from another world too, which would make this his second life. For the demon lord, it's already the third. He was born in this world as a demon and served as the demon lord 2 generations ago. In his first life, he was already absurdly powerful. He had everything he wanted and killed everyone who got in his way. He took wealth, women, power, and laughed in the face of anyone who tried to stop him. After wiping out all the other races, he even started killing demons. I killed the dwarves and stole their treasures. I burned the forests of those annoying elves. I wiped out the beastkin and the dragon clans too. And I laughed, thinking finally, I'm free. I'm happy, or so he thought. He kept chasing this so-called happiness. But of course, the story didn't end happily. He died still standing, still fighting. Total giga-chad. Takafuji asks, have you died? The guy says, no, I never met anyone strong enough to kill me, but I did have a lifespan. And once it ran out, I found myself in a blank white space. A little girl with white hair appeared in front of me. I thought it was the FBI coming for me, but nope, he met God. Takafuji watches him, wondering if it was the same goddess he saw when he arrived in this world. The guy says she introduced herself as the goddess of this world, and immediately, Takafuji knows it's not the same one. His goddess was the goddess of all worlds. Igno explains that according to that goddess, he had simply gone too far. All of his memories, magical power, strength, and talent were stripped away. Then he was reincarnated in a place known as the Abandoned World. Takafuji's eyes narrow. He asks what that is, and the guy says it plainly: the world you came from, our world, hell. As the name implies, it's a world the gods don't care about. Having lost everything, he was born into a mediocre family, lived a mediocre life, and nothing special ever happened. He tried his best to make things work. He got a job, earned a living, and kept his head down to avoid problems. He married a kind woman who, he adds, wasn't particularly beautiful or special. Dude, what a roast. At least they had a kid. The boy was beautiful. Their home and finances were a mess, and every now and then they argued, just like any other family. But it was an honest life. Damn, after living like the devil, the guy spent his next life as your average working man. What a contrast. And yet, that's what made him happy. When he was the demon lord and got everything he wanted, he thought that was happiness. But that life ended without him ever understanding what happiness actually meant. So now he says he wants to help others find happiness instead. Takafuji's confused. Who's this guy you've been talking about? But he just says, I'll do what I can with this body I've been given. Takafuji asks if that means he's going to kill everyone. The man shakes his head. That's not what I meant. He reminds him he's a chimera, a homunculus. When he was summoned, multiple races were used to create his body. In total, he's the product of 6 different species. Those same 6 races that divided this world are still fighting to this day. Takafuji stands there, a little stunned. This whole story confirms that there really are 6 races, but then he wonders aloud, does this guy even know how the world actually works? And the demon lord says it plainly. Of course he does. He's well aware of how he's treated. It becomes clear the moment he walks into a bar. This world was deliberately built in a way that keeps the races from getting along. Maybe Takafuji doesn't fully get it, coming from a world with diverse races and coexistence. Actually, he probably does understand. Give him some credit. Still, our boy just wants to know, what's the plan to save everyone? Old man Igno lights his pipe and says, I don't want to destroy this entire world. Give me your hand. That was not the plan Takafuji expected. Now he's just confused. Igno explains that at first he wasn't sure himself. But after meeting Takafuji, his plans changed. So Takafuji asks if he refuses, is he going to be threatened or punished? But Igno says no, you're free to do whatever you want. Telling you all this now is just my way of paying for your cooperation. The truth is, even if Takafuji doesn't want to help, just by staying alive while Igno destroys everything, he'll end up cooperating anyway. As long as he doesn't die and keeps walking through the world, crushing things and ruining lives, he'll be helping by default. The stare he gives Takafuji is heavy, and our guy just stands there, speechless. But eventually, he says it's kind of selfish to reveal all that and expect something in return. Though, to be honest, he's not particularly interested in dying for anyone else either. Still, he says the price of cooperation isn't quite enough. He wants more. Igno looks confused. Takafuji says he's been tired ever since arriving in this world. It's time someone paid up. Wait a minute, is Takafuji going to dive into the destruction too? Back at the bar, flashback moment, Aaliyah was left behind. She just stood there, watching him walk away. Now in the forest, she's all alone, hugging those strong thighs of hers, not understanding why he told her not to follow. In that moment, she realized Lenori was more tense than she'd ever seen him. She thought maybe she could be useful, but the very first thing he did was push her away. As she's caught up in her little emotional spiral, a pack of wolves creeps up behind her. But let's be clear, Aaliyah is one of the most dangerous hunters around. And hey, look who shows up, Fanatique. What are you doing here, girl? Before Aaliyah can say anything, Fanatique just hammers one of the wolves into the dirt. The rest scatter like cowards. Aaliyah thanks her, and Fanatique says it's fine. But then she scolds her. Don't you know this is monster territory? Why are you standing here with your guard down? Considering Aaliyah's reputation as the Black Rose, there must be something on her mind for her to be this distracted. Aaliyah hesitates, then says it's nothing. Fanatique, however, says something completely unexpected. They're exactly the same, she and Kiri, and suddenly she lunges at her. Luckily, Aaliyah dodges in time. What are you doing? Why are you attacking me? Fanatique just grins and says she's curious to test Kiri's famous partner. Plus, she noticed Aaliyah seemed kind of down, so she figured she'd shake things up. Aaliyah dodges again, asking what the hell Fanatique is thinking. But the girl just keeps going, saying her reflexes are excellent. Then, completely out of nowhere, Fanatique asks, "When you were a child, did you believe in God?" Aaliyah's confused. Fanatique explains that she didn't. Her mother was deeply religious, never missing a single prayer. But not once did she tell Fanatique to pray. Reverse psychology? Clever old woman. But apparently, prayer didn't help in the end. One day, they were attacked, and her mother died right in front of her. Surrounded by monsters, certain she'd die too, she gave up on everything. That was the first time she ever put her hands together and prayed with everything she had. All she wanted in that moment was to go to heaven with her mother. But when she begged for that, God appeared and didn't let her. Incredible. She says she still doesn't know exactly what saved her back then, but because of that experience, she believes in God. That's why she not only prays today, but also spreads the word of Lady God, as she calls her. Fanatique reminds her that she's a strong ally of Kiri, so she should go back and support him. That's why she needs to stay by his side. And then boom, emotional overload. Aaliyah yells that she wants to be by Kiri's side, and bam, she takes a punch right to the face. Aaliyah asks if she's okay, and says her punch really packs a serious punch. So serious that, yep, Fanatique is out cold, because she just wanted a nice warm lap to lie on after all. Fanatique sighs and says, honestly, she's a little frustrated too. She still can't figure Kiri out. She thought that since Aaliyah spent more time with him, maybe she had a better idea. Aaliyah responds that she's sure Fanatique can figure it out with the ability she has. Either way, she thanks her for helping. Later that night, under the moonlight, Aaliyah's at home relaxing until he suddenly arrives. Hey, she jumps in surprise. He tells her to calm down. He just came through the shadows because it was faster. Also, he's got some important information to share. Aaliyah says she's relieved. It looks like nothing happened. He asks if she was worried, and she admits that, yeah, she was. If he went out into the forest and died like an idiot, it'd be a lame ending to the story. And besides, even if he died, she's not sure she'd be free. She says all that, but she's smiling. He notices. She then asks why he's so quiet. He says it's nothing. She just seems full of energy, and he needs help with an experiment. Here we go again with these experiments. She asks what it is and why he's smiling like that. He just says, you'll see soon enough. I thought it was going to be some experiment on her, but nope, Maxine the church knew it, called it from the beginning. This guy's a full-on nun devourer. Turns out Mask is there, asking what he wants. The guy says he wants to know if they found the girl who ran off after the betrayal. Probably talking about Aaliyah, huh? Mask apologizes, saying they'll find her soon, though it's been difficult. The man throws a nun to the floor and tells them to hurry up and bring her in, get her, to do the work. For the next ritual, they'll need even more priestesses. He explains that if they want more followers, they need prestige. Mask, still keeping his composure, says he does it all in the name of God, but the guy is seriously unsettling. Later on, Mask storms into his own room and slams himself into a chair, muttering that this guy had better not think he's getting rid of him that easily. All right, someone please explain the drama here. I'm lost. Meanwhile, in a castle under the moonlight, great, more creepy people are showing up. The demon crowd just keeps growing. They're all gathered, saying what's happening isn't enough. This needs to grow more, much more. First step, consume the whole forest. Next morning, apparently Aaliyah was devoured. I never know what that means when Takafuji says it. Is it a bite on the neck? Something else? Hard to say. She's casually explaining that that's just how Takafuji is. No energy during the day, sleeps a lot. Sylphie can only think that part of the escape plan is clear. If she's going to run, it has to be in the morning. Suddenly, they arrive where they were headed. A critically important destination. A cake shop, yep, filler episode unlocked. Sylphie's favorite arc. Aaliyah is shocked to learn Sylphie doesn't like cake. She explains she's not like a regular human who needs food, so it makes sense that she wouldn't care for it. But seeing that Aaliyah seems a little disappointed, Sylphie gives in and says fine, she'll eat it, just so she won't be sad. But yeah, she does like the cake. Clearly, we're deep in filler territory now. Later on, Aaliyah's fired up, saying that one day she's going to beat that man senseless. Even if he saved her, that doesn't mean she likes being under his control. She's grateful, of course, but that's a separate matter. She's only sticking with him until the day she surpasses him. Sylphie doesn't seem all that impressed. She says their relationship is kind of weird. Then suddenly, Fenrir appears and says they need to head to the forest. Or, well, you can't even call it a forest anymore. The place has been completely wiped clean. The two arrive, looking around in confusion, wondering how an entire forest could vanish overnight. Not just the trees, but the grass, the monsters, everything, gone. Fenrir says it's hard to imagine what kind of creature could have done something like this, and Sylphie adds that even the spirits are gone, not the kind of thing any human could pull off. Right away, Aaliyah takes to the skies, saying she's going to investigate. She scans the area from above, flying back and forth. Fenrir asks if she found anything, and she says the signs of destruction are fresher in one direction. If she connects the dots between the damaged areas, she might be able to map the path they're taking. But even more important is figuring out who's behind this. Sylphie chimes in, saying that the spirits farther ahead seem deeply scared. Maybe it'd be better not to keep going. Aaliyah, of course, ignores that and says she can feel something coming from the mountains. And of course it's them, the worm things, that same weird girl's creepy centipede monsters. The 15-legged freaks are slithering all over, tearing through the earth and devouring everything. Aaliyah immediately recognizes them. They're the same beasts she ran into in the forest last time. Only now, there are way more. Sylphie urges them to retreat into the forest before they're spotted. Watching their path, Aaliyah realizes the direction they're heading. It's toward a farm she helped during a previous mission. The city of Reigen, the same place where Takafuji bought his weapon. Hold on a second. Remember that blacksmith who was leaving town? Starting to feel like someone's got insider information. Regan had been attacked by monsters before, but usually there's a warning, a mission, something from the church. But this time, nothing, not single heads up, which means whatever's coming isn't part of the system. Sylphie asks if maybe they should warn that guy, probably Takafuji. Aaliyah says yes and tells her to go find Lenori and bring him here. Fenrir offers to go fetch him, but wants to know what the plan is. Aaliyah thinks about how much Takafuji loves hiding his powers, but there's no way he'll ignore a threat to the kingdom. Remembering the people she's already lost, she decides she'll fight at least on her own terms. Fenrir warns her that he can smell the strength of the creatures. They're way too powerful. She doesn't stand a chance, but she doesn't care. With a burst of confidence, she draws her sword and says she's not the same as before. Now she can fight. One of the worm beasts notices them, its slimy mouth wide open, and lunges. This time, Aaliyah strikes first. Wait, she launched that attack? She destroyed it? Fenrir watches, surprised, and notes that her power was leaking out even before she unsheathed her sword. Actually, maybe that was criticism. He's saying she's making it too obvious. Might have been the enemy team's red on her. Either way, something got eaten. Still, he compliments her. Even if her technique is immature, he respects her determination to protect others. In this temporary form, he can't stay by her side for long, but as long as he can, he'll lend her his power. because he and his fallen comrades used to protect this land too. Shikai comments that out of nowhere, Fenrir grew massive, and he realizes it's the first time he's ever shown his true form. Then the dynamic duo gets to work. Aaliyah goes in first and lands a clean slash. He compliments her, saying she's not half bad. She thanks him for the backup. Blades flying, monsters dying. Everything's going fine until they realize the number of enemies is way higher than expected. But Fenrir knows that if they can reduce the number of monsters, the damage to the region will drop too. Aaliyah immediately catches on and charges forward. They press the attack together. Sylphie watches, still surprised. She had no idea these two were this strong. Aaliyah's going all out, slashing left and right. Using wind magic, everything she's got. Even that airball spell of hers. But explosions? Nah, her magic's too weak. It keeps getting deflected. Fenrir warns her to conserve her energy. These things seem really resistant to her type of magic. And then he says it. Harsh truth incoming. Woman from before, Igiana, yeah. She handled a blade way better. He says Alia needs to learn that kind of refined, magical control. Ouch. She used to be a princess, and now they want her to fight like a battle-hardened commander. Still, she knows Fenrir was close to Igiana, so if anyone can teach her, it's him. Another monster comes in hot, and Aaliyah realizes she's going to have to use less mana and just cut smarter. She lands another hit. Meanwhile, Fenrir is ripping through beasts with pure physical power, but Aaliyah is feeling it. She can tell she doesn't have many slashes left in her. Her magic is running low. It was obvious, but now it really hits her. She still has a long way to go. Fenrir asks her to hang on a little longer, but she's already screaming. Wait, that wasn't a scream of pain. She bit something, right? She's a vampire, her fangs work. She doesn't need food, but maybe this was the plan all along. Absorb energy directly. The battle keeps going, but someone's watching and clearly not happy about what she sees. That weird woman from before clenches her fists, and just like that, all the centipede monsters lock onto their location. Hey, don't you dare mess with my waifu? What happened to me? Why am I defending her this hard? Fenrir senses something's off. Sylphie shouts for her to be careful. Too late. One of the monsters lunges in and rips off her arm. Please tell me she's like Takafuji and can regenerate. She stands there shakily, staring at the bloody mess. She hasn't even fully processed it. Then another hit. A tail whip sends her flying. Fenrir manages to soften the blow, but damn, it doesn't stop there. A second monster comes in for a bite. Sylphie jumps in with a barrier just in time to stop the next attack. Some of Fenrir's fur floats into the monster's eye, and he gets in a counterbite to the mouth. Brutal. Aaliyah is seriously down. Fenrir looks over and asks if the girl is okay. He begs her to wake up. They need to retreat now. Sylphie sees it too. If they don't leave soon, she's going to die. And just then, Aaliyah remembers Amanda, her sister calling out to her. Aaliyah lies there, barely conscious, staring at the figure. Amanda laughs, saying it looks like she's in the same pathetic situation again. They were always weak. Is she willing to abandon her again and survive alone? Amanda had her head cut off and died. So why is she smiling? Aaliyah slowly gets up, saying Amanda would never say something like that. This memory is just a ghost created by her own weakness. And that's fine, because she's still happy to see that face again after so long. She admits that back then she was too weak to save her. But now she's changed, and Amanda can watch what happens next. Sylphie stares, confused about what's happening. Did she just stand up with a new arm already? Or is she still rocking the stump? Fenrir tells her to get on his back. They have to get out of there before they're surrounded again. But then Aaliyah barely twitches her foot, and a slash shoots through the monster. Fenrir is stunned, and all she says is for them to escape without her. She's staying behind to keep fighting. That's when he tells her that being proud is fine, but dying like this would be meaningless. Then the man himself shows up, And from the way everything pauses, you'd think he was about to hand her arm back right then and there. He reminds her that for a vampire, blood is life. He made the effort to share his with her, so she should try to preserve it a little better. She's clearly overwhelmed, emotional, that he came back for her. But he's not exactly sentimental about it. He tells her she completely lost her composure. She didn't even notice what was happening around her. He steps down off a monster, drives his blade in, and finishes it in one clean move. Fenrir cheers that Master has arrived. Takafuju remarks that the joints are the weak points. She should have noticed that and saved her mana. Finally, he pulls out her arm and tells her to avoid losing limbs from now on. The King of Stitches reattaches it with a little flair, giving her a chance to recover. But he's not done lecturing. He tells her she made multiple mistakes. The biggest? Not abandoning the city when she had the chance. Why was she so emotionally attached to that place? Barely holding herself together and nearly dead, Aaliyah just apologizes. She acted without thinking. He tells her flat out that it doesn't matter how many of these things she kills. She's not saving that city. More monsters start showing up, and he says she'll understand why soon enough. The beasts dig into the ground as that creepy girl starts moving her fingers. Suddenly, a shadowy hand emerges. Takafuji is already behind her. He says he knows she's the one behind everything. The girl turns to look, but he's already surrounded her with thread. She's caught. Sylphie's confused. 1 second, Lenori was right here. Now he's on the other side of the mountain, and it looks like he's captured someone. Lenori eyes the girl and uses his ability. He identifies her as Chris Camassel, confirmed through her stats and skills. No doubt about it. She's the one with the power to control magical beasts. The city's attacks have always followed the same pattern, and the Church of Raven is always the one to save the day. Raven, the so-called hero, is worshipped like a saint. His church is even seen as sacred ground for female training. It all seems a little too convenient, and now, finally, they know who's behind the city's monster attacks. Chris smirks, saying he's done his homework, but it's a shame he still doesn't know everything. Takafuji steps forward and says he's got a very helpful informant. The rest he'll get now. He activates the Mystic Hypnosis Eye, but of course, she smiles. If we're talking magic circles, she knows a few herself, and as always, the guy's eye fails again. This cursed eye never works. Suddenly, a glowing magic circle forms beneath them, and creatures start to rise from the ground. To no one's surprise but Takafuji's, his mental interference doesn't land. Chris just laughs. Now she says he'll understand her power. She obeys everything that man says. And yeah, she really was dumb enough to cooperate with that guy just for likes on this video. That helps the channel make more juicy content for its viewers. Activate the cheeky little bell, and I'm out.